Chapter 2263. In the starry sky, Yi Xian and the other three looked solemn. Really strong. The Mist Reverend was also strong, but compared to the Sage of Book, they were not on the same level. Apart from anything else, Yi Xian was also a little annoyed. The strength of the enemy was always abnormal. It was simply a little too outrageous. In the distance, the Sage of Book looked at Yi Xian and the other three calmly, but he was worried. The possessor of the Great Path Luck. This kind of person was not an ordinary person. There was one possessor of the Great Path Luck in the Immortal Mausoleum. And that person's terror could only be described as abnormal. Although the four in front of him were not as terrifying as that person, he knew that the four of them had not fully grown. Although they were enemies, he had to admit that the four of them were indeed monstrous. Under normal circumstances, those who were 2 levels lower than him would not even have the courage to look him in the eye. As the ancient sage said, if the 4 of them were allowed to grow, his lineage would be in big trouble in the future. It might even bring great trouble to the Immortal Mausoleum. Thinking of this, the Sage of Book looked at Yi Xian and the other 3 and clenched his right hand. The best way to solve problems was to get rid of them before they were formed. In the distance, at the end of the starry sky, Yi Xian looked calm. Under normal circumstances, we can't beat him. Dao Ling said solemnly, then what should we do? Yi Xian took a deep breath and chuckled. What else can we do? Of course we fight with our lives. I'll fight with my life first. With that, he slowly closed his eyes. Boom! Yi Xian's body started to burn. At the same time, the power of bloodline in his body surged wildly. But this time, he did not burn his soul. Without the Qingxian sword, once his soul was ignited, he would really be burnt to ashes. Seeing Yi Xian burn his body, Dao Ling and the other 2 were stunned. Was he really going to fight with his life? Yi Xian suddenly said, to fight against this person, the 4 of us must cooperate well. Do you understand what I mean? The 3 nodded. Yi Xian suddenly said, my sword is the strangest, it's suitable for support. But this time, I'll take the front, you guys support me. Dao Ling was stunned. Why? Yi Xian chuckled. Because it's really dangerous this time. With that, he disappeared on the spot. Chi! A strand of blood-colored sword light suddenly tore through space and slashed straight at the distant book sage. The book sage's expression was calm. When the sword light arrived above his head, he suddenly opened his right hand and an invisible barrier appeared in front of him. Rumble. Yi Xian's sword was directly blocked by that barrier. At this time, Yi Xian appeared above the book sage and slashed down with his sword. Draw the sword to decide life and death. This sword strike had superimposed over 100,000 slashes. When the sword was unleashed, the entire starry sky exploded. It was incomparably terrifying. Rumble. As Yi Xian's sword slashed down, the barrier in front of the book sage suddenly trembled violently. A strand of blood-colored sword light suddenly exploded above the book sage's head. At this time, Yi Xian frantically slashed down with his sword. Chi 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 chi. In an instant, the surrounding starry sky directly roared. Countless blood-colored sword lights continuously spread out, the entire starry sky was a mess. At this time, Dao Ling and the others also rushed in front of the book sage. A frenzied siege. At this moment, the 4 of them did not hold back at all and did their best. Rumble, rumble, rumble. The entire endless starry sky suddenly boiled, and then was annihilated bit by bit. This was because the starry sky could no longer withstand the power of Yi Xian and the others. The 4 of them did not fight alone, but cooperated. Under the perfect cooperation of Yi Xian and the others, the book sage could not do anything to Yi Xian and the others for a moment. The more Yi Xian and the others fought, the more excited they became, and the more frenzied they became. At this time, a terrifying power suddenly swept through the starry sky. Rumble. The entire starry sky was obliterated. Yi Xian and the others retreated explosively for over 100 kilometers. The book sage stood silently in the distance, and her expression was terrifyingly gloomy. There was an ancient book in her hand, and the terrifying energy from before had come from this ancient book. The book sage stared fixedly at Yi Xian's group of 4, damn it. As soon as he finished speaking, his eyes suddenly closed slowly. In the next moment, the ancient book in his hand trembled slightly, and then a strand of terrifying energy suddenly surged out explosively from within the ancient book. Bang! A terrifying aura swept through the surroundings. In the distance, Yi Xian's pupils constricted abruptly. Everyone, watch out. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly charged forward, and then he swiftly drew his sword and slashed. Hiss! An expanse of blood-red sword light slashed down like a waterfall. Rumble! The expanse of blood-red sword light had just come into contact with the terrifying energy when it was instantly dispersed. Meanwhile, numerous flying swords suddenly slashed towards the book sage from all directions. The book sage had an emotionless expression on his face. He suddenly clenched his right hand into a fist and smashed it forward. Bang! A black circle suddenly surged out from within him, and then those 4 flying swords were instantly obliterated into nothingness. Meanwhile, the terrifying energy had arrived before Yi Xian's group of 4. The expressions of Yi Xian's group of 4 changed violently, and they hurriedly attacked in unison. Rumble! A strand of terrifying energy suddenly erupted like a volcano in front of Yi Xian's group of 4. Bang! 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 Along with 4 explosions, Yi Xian's group of 4 were blasted over 30 kilometers away. As soon as they stopped moving, besides Tianqi, the bodies of Yi Xian's group of 3 exploded apart. Their bodies were obliterated. The 3 of them weren't able to endure such terrifying energy at all. The book sage stared fixedly at Yi Xian's group of 3. It's time to end this. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly charged towards Yi Xian's group of 3. A wisp of a ferocious expression flashed through Yi Xian's eyes, and he was just about to charge forward. Meanwhile, a shadow charged towards the book sage. It was Tianqi. Tianqi suddenly roared furiously when he arrived in front of Sage of Book, and then he smashed his fist towards Sage of Book. A terrifying force swept out from within him, and at the same time, a furious roar that was like that of a wild beast resounded from within Tianqi, and it shook the heavens and the earth. Rumble! Tianqi's punch had actually forced the book sage back, but Tianqi himself was blasted over 30 kilometers away as well. As soon as he stopped moving, his body shattered, and a ball of blood exploded. He still couldn't defeat him. The book sage was stunned, and his eyes were filled with disbelief as he gazed at Tianqi. This bloodline. You're from that clan. Tianqi stared fixedly at the book sage and remained silent. The book sage had an extremely solemn expression on his face. You're actually from that clan. How could this be possible? Tianqi suddenly roared furiously, and then he charged towards the book sage again. However, Yi Xian stopped him. Only his soul remained, so he would definitely die if he charged forward again. Yi Xian turned to glance at Dao Ling and Shi Tian. At this moment, their souls were extremely weak as well. They'd used up everything they had in that battle. Even if the 4 of them fought with their lives on the line, they still couldn't defeat a time immortal. When he thought up to this point, Yi Xian suddenly took out the spear he obtained from Qin Guan and had it devour 3 million universe veins. Fearing that it wouldn't be enough, he added another 2 million. 5 million universe veins. He had no other choice but to use the spear. Yi Xian gazed at the spear in his hand with a calm expression. The reason he hadn't used the spear in the beginning was because its recoil was too terrifying. The more universe veins it fed, the more powerful it would be. However, the recoil would be even more terrifying as well. 5 million universe veins, that recoil was absolutely not something he could withstand right now. Yi Xian suddenly said, Dao Ling, Shi Tian, take Tianqi and go to the Celestial Treasure Pavilion. The Celestial Treasure Pavilion? Dao Ling was stunned, and then he said, what about you? Yi Xian smiled, I'll stay behind and bring up the rear. Dao Ling immediately shook his head. No, you can't defeat him. Yi Xian said, I have a way to deal with him. Dao Ling shook his head again. He was about to speak when Yi Xian suddenly turned around and roared furiously, cut the crap. Leave quickly. Dao Ling was stunned, and then he said angrily, why are you being so fierce? My father hasn't been fierce to me, so I won't leave. Beat me to death. Yi Xian said angrily, do you believe that I'll ask my sister to beat you up? Dao Ling's expression froze, don't call me sister if you dare. Yi Xian shook his head, all of you leave first. Trust me, I can escape. Shi Tian shook his head slightly, Brother Yi, we aren't stupid. Yi Xian fell silent. In the distance, the book sage suddenly said, are you done chatting? Yi Xian suddenly looked at the book sage. The next moment, he immediately retreated, but his gun was still in place. He suddenly realized, why did he have to hold a gun with his hand? Couldn't he use his mind to shoot? The small gun was speechless. Yi Xian suddenly said, retreat. As soon as he finished speaking, he led Dao Ling and the rest to retreat. At the same time, he used his mind to activate the small gun. Boom! A beam of white light suddenly burst out from the muzzle. Almost instantly, Yi Xian's eyes opened wide, and his entire soul trembled violently. Then, he fell straight down. At this moment, he felt his mind go blank. It's over. This was the last thought in Yi Xian's mind. This was because he realized that even if he used his mind to shoot, his divine soul would still suffer from the backlash. It's over. In the distance, when the book sage saw the beam of white light, his pupils suddenly shrank. He raised his arms to block it, and at the same time, an invisible barrier enveloped him. The beam of white light arrived. Rumble. The invisible barrier in front of the sage of book exploded. At the same time, the sage of book retreated hundreds of thousands of meters. As soon as he stopped, his body shattered as well. The book sage was dumbfounded. What the hell was this? In the distance, Dao Ling and Shi Tian had already taken Yi Xian and Tian Qi and disappeared into the starry sky. The book sage was still dumbfounded. That spear strike had directly injured him. After a moment, the book sage's expression suddenly became ferocious. Pass down my order, the Yuan lineage will pursue and kill these four. At the end of the starry sky, Dao Ling hugged Yi Xian's soul and said with a trembling voice, Brother Yi, wake up. Yi Xian's eyes were slightly closed, and his aura was getting weaker and weaker. Dao Ling panicked. Brother Yi, wake up. Still no response. Dao Ling turned to look at Shi Tian. Shi Tian said in a low voice, he suffered from the backlash. Now that he has lost consciousness, we must find a place to heal him. Dao Ling said in a low voice, go to the Celestial Treasure Pavilion. Shi Tian said softly, the Celestial Treasure Pavilion doesn't want to get involved in this. It's not nice of us to go to them again and again. Dao Ling was silent. Shi Tian said in a low voice, go to the Shi clan. I will ask my ancestor for help. Dao Ling immediately shook his head. If you go to the Shi clan, you will implicate the entire Shi clan. After a moment of silence, Shi Tian said, he is a friend. We can't leave him in the lurch. Soon, the three of them brought Yi Xian to the Shi clan. As soon as they arrived, Shi Tian's voice resounded in the sky above the Shi clan. All Shi clan members, except for the elders, leave. Stay far away. Without my order, no one is allowed to return to the clan. If the Shi clan is destroyed today, none of the Shi clan members outside will be allowed to seek revenge. P.S. I've been studying in Beijing these few days, and I've met many experts. Apart from me, do you like other authors? I know, definitely not. 7017K. Chapter 2264. Under Shi Tian's summons, the experts of the Shi clan emerged from their secluded cultivation. At the same time, the members of the Shi clan were led to various parts of the universe. Shi clan, ancestral shrine. At this moment, Yi Xian was lying silently on the ground while a group of Shi clan experts were healing him. Looking at Yi Xian in front of them, the strong ones from the Shi clan all had mixed feelings. Not long ago, the Shi clan and Yi Xian had been mortal enemies. Yet now, the Shi clan was going all out to save this fellow. Fate really made fools of people. Some of the top experts of the Shi clan had solemn expressions. Because they'd realized the severity of the situation. Shi Tian arrived before a statue and bowed slightly, "Ancestor." Crack. The statue suddenly cracked open, and then a middle-aged man appeared before Shi Tian. All the experts of the Shi clan hurriedly knelt down. Shi Tian. This man was the ancestor of the Shi clan, and he was the founder of the Shi clan. Shi Tian gazed at Shi Tian for a long time before smiling. "You're very outstanding." "Very outstanding." Shi Tian spoke solemnly. "Ancestor, my Shi clan is in danger of annihilation. I wish to ask for your help." Shi Tian suddenly looked outside and spoke softly. "The time immortal?" Shi Tian turned around, and his face sank. The Sage of Book had arrived. Outside the Shi clan, the Sage of Book looked down at the Shi clan below, and his gaze descended onto Shi Tian with a frown. Shi Tian looked at Shi Tian and smiled. "Little fellow, you've caused quite a bit of trouble." Shi Tian spoke solemnly. "Can Ancestor defeat this person?" Shi Tian shook his head. "I can't." Shi Tian's face fell when he heard this. Meanwhile, Shi Tian spoke again. "Even though I can't defeat him, I can delay him." "Delay him?" Shi Tian was stunned. Shi Tian suddenly turned to glance at Dao Ling and Tianqi, and he frowned. "Possessors of the karmic Dao?" Shi Tian nodded. "They are my friends." "Friends?" Shi Tian's expression instantly became strange. "You are friends?" Shi Tian nodded. "Yes." Shi Tian shook his head. "How strange. You actually became friends. How interesting." Shi Tian lightly smiled. "It's a long story." Sakya suddenly turned his head to look at the distant Yi Xian lying on the ground. "Is he also?" Shi Tian nodded. Sakya said in a soft voice, "His injuries are extremely serious. It is useless for you to heal him like this." Shi Tian hurriedly said, "Does Ancestor have a way?" Sakya was silent for a moment before he said, "Let him go to the soul recovery pool. I and some of my clansmen have left some divine souls there. Let him swallow them to restore his divine soul." Shi Tian was slightly stunned when he heard this, and then he turned to look at Shi Qian. Shi Qian laughed bitterly. "I don't know as well. That should only be known by the clan leader." Sakya laughed and said, "Indeed. When I left back then, I left behind an ancestral rule that only the clan leader could enter this place." The previous clan leader. Did something happen to our clan? All the experts of the Shi clan fell silent when they heard this. Sakya shook his head and smiled. "Forget it. I don't care about that anymore. In any case, the current clan leader is very good." As he spoke, he suddenly pointed to the right. The mountain wall in the distance suddenly split open, and a passage appeared in front of everyone's eyes. Shi Tian immediately said, "Elder Shi Qian, quickly bring Brother Yi into it." Shi Qian carried Yi Xian and disappeared on the spot. At this moment, Sakya raised his head and looked at the distant Sage of Book. He smiled faintly and said, "I don't know how long I can last. Take care of yourselves." As his voice fell, he suddenly disappeared on the spot. Boom! A terrifying force suddenly swept towards the sky and the Sage of Book. The Sage of Book was expressionless. "I will deal with this person first. Master Yun, Tribulation Lord, you two deal with the others." As he finished speaking, he directly disappeared on the spot. Rumble. Soon, a terrifying explosion suddenly came from the depths of the distant starry sky. Below, the Tribulation Lord and Master Yun looked at Dao Ling and the other two. The Tribulation Lord suddenly disappeared on the spot, and a terrifying divine lightning suddenly descended from the sky, sweeping towards Dao Ling and the other two. As soon as the powerful lightning appeared, the entire sky changed color and trembled violently. Below, Dao Ling's eyes flashed with malevolence. "Leave this shit to me." As his voice fell, he suddenly stomped his right foot and shot up into the sky. Rumble. The moment Dao Ling shot up into the sky, a terrifying Dharma body of all elephants appeared behind him. At the same time, his physical body directly burned. When he chose to burn his physical body, the Dharma body of all elephants actually burned along with him. Facing the Tribulation Lord, Dao Ling was very clear that he had to fight with all his might. Otherwise, he would be at an absolute disadvantage. If he fought with all his might, there was still a chance of survival. On the other side, the moment the Tribulation Lord and Dao Ling attacked, Tian Qi also shot up into the sky and headed straight for Master Yun. His previous enemy was Master Yun. Now that the two of them met, it was as if two enemies had met, and their eyes were exceptionally red. Master Yun coldly looked at Tian Qi, who was charging at him, and the next moment, he suddenly disappeared on the spot. Qi. A terrifying force descended from the sky, and the entire sky was directly torn apart. Below, Shi Tian looked into the distance. Not far away, the spacetime there suddenly split open, and a youth slowly walked out. The youth wore a long robe, and his black hair was combed vertically behind his head. In his left hand, he held a sheathed long saber. He walked very calmly and calmly. Shi Tian looked at the youth with a calm expression. He knew that the youth in front of him was his opponent. The youth suddenly said softly, "The fate of the Great Path." As he spoke, he shook his head, and a hint of disdain appeared at the corner of his mouth. A true monster does not need the recognition of the Great Path's brush. Why do they need its bonus? As his voice fell, he suddenly leaped up and slashed with his saber. Chi! A wave of saber light suddenly tore the entire sky apart. Below, Shi Tian's eyes narrowed slightly, and his right foot suddenly tapped lightly. Boom! Shi Tian shot up into the sky and directly met the wave of saber light. Soon, the entire sky and earth began to be destroyed inch by inch. On the other side, a youth and an old man were quietly watching everything in front of them. This youth was the Evil Lord. The Evil Lord said softly, "Master, they finally started fighting with the Immortal Mausoleum." Beside the Evil Lord, the old man said excitedly, "This is naturally great news." The Evil Lord fell silent. The old man said in a deep voice, "You want to help them?" The Evil Lord nodded. "It's not good to benefit from it." The old man was somewhat puzzled. What's not good about it? Isn't it great to let these people and the Immortal Mausoleum fight to the death? After a moment of silence, the Evil Lord shook his head. No. The old man was puzzled. Why? Let them exhaust the Immortal Mausoleum. Regardless of whether they die or the Immortal Mausoleum is exhausted, it will only be beneficial to us. The Evil Lord shook his head again. You can't think like that. Master, if they die, then we will no longer have a powerful ally. At that time, facing this terrifying Immortal Mausoleum, our evil spirit race will no longer have a chance to rise again. As he spoke, he looked into the distance and softly said, "Today, if we watch from the sidelines and don't lend a helping hand, in the future, when the Celestial Mausoleum deals with us, who will help us?" The old man fell silent. The Evil Lord looked at the Tribulation Lord in the distance, and his gaze gradually turned cold. With our evil spirit race's strength, we will never have a chance to take revenge in this lifetime. Since that's the case, why not take a gamble? As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly clenched his right hand, and a blood-colored spear suddenly appeared in his hand. The old man's expression changed drastically. He hurriedly said, "You don't be rash. If we attack now, it will be equivalent to exposing us in advance." The Evil Lord shook his head. "If we don't help now, it will only be icing on the cake in the future. Do you think they want it?" As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly soared into the sky and headed straight for the Tribulation Lord in the distance. The old man's face instantly turned pale upon seeing this. In the distant sky, the Tribulation Lord, who was fighting with Dao Ling, suddenly changed his expression. In the next moment, he suddenly turned his head. At that moment, a spear pierced through the air. The Tribulation Lord's eyes narrowed. He waved his right hand, and a divine lightning barrier appeared in front of him. Rumble. A bolt of lightning suddenly exploded, and the Tribulation Lord was forced to retreat nearly 10,000 feet. After stopping, the Tribulation Lord raised his head and looked at the evil lord in the distance with a cold glint in his eyes. Remnant of the evil spirit race. The evil lord chuckled. Come, let's continue. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly vanished on the spot. Hiss. A ray of red spear light suddenly tore through the battlefield, and in the next moment, the tip of the spear had arrived before the Tribulation Lord. The Tribulation Lord's pupils constricted. He suddenly leaped up and smashed his fist forward. Countless bolts of lightning rained down from his fist. Rumble. Countless rays of spear light and lightning suddenly exploded and shot towards the surroundings. In an instant, the entire expanse of the starry sky was shattered into pieces. Meanwhile, Dao Ling suddenly charged towards the Tribulation Lord. At the same time, another ray of spear light slashed towards the Tribulation Lord. Boom! The Tribulation Lord retreated explosively for over 100 kilometers. As soon as he stopped, Dao Ling and the evil lord charged towards him once more. Boom! The Tribulation Lord retreated explosively once more. It didn't take long for the Tribulation Lord to be suppressed by the evil lord and Dao Ling. Over 100 kilometers away, the Tribulation Lord had just stopped, and he suddenly spoke in a ferocious voice. You want to bully me with numbers? As soon as he finished speaking, he opened his right hand, and a command token suddenly shot into the sky before vanishing into the horizon. Dao Ling and the evil lord frowned at the sight of this. It was obvious that the Tribulation Lord had called for help. Immortal Mausoleum. The evil monarch was silent and his face became a little dignified. Dao Ling glanced at the evil prince and asked, "What's your name?" The evil monarch said, "Evil spirit race, evil monarch." Dao Ling shook his head. "Never heard of it." The evil monarch, Dao Ling sized up the evil monarch and said, "The Tribulation Lord is calling for help. Did someone call you? If you do, call for more." The evil monarch hesitated for a moment and then said, "No." Dao Ling was silent. There was no one to call. What a pain in the ass. At this moment, a huge vortex suddenly appeared in the depths of the starry sky. Then, several terrifying auras suddenly swept down from the vortex. Dao Ling said in a deep voice, "Their men are here." The evil prince suddenly turned around and left. Dao Ling looked at the evil prince in shock. "Where are you going?" The evil monarch hesitated and then said, "I'm going to the toilet, Dao Ling." 7017K. Chapter 2265. Hearing the evil prince's words, Dao Ling's face darkened. What F*** King toilet? This fellow was trying to escape. Dao Ling quickly pulled the evil prince back. "Brother, you can't leave. If you leave now, the Immortal Mausoleum won't let you go. You're going to die anyway. What's the difference between dying sooner or later?" Hearing this, the evil prince was speechless. Wasn't it better to die later? Meanwhile, a middle-aged man and two black-robed figures appeared here. The evil prince and Dao Ling's faces darkened when they saw the three middle-aged men. All three of them were time controllers. Although he wasn't a time immortal, a time controller was still terrifying. On their side, not only were their cultivation levels suppressed, but they were also suppressed in terms of numbers. How to fight? Dao Ling was in despair. The evil monarch's expression was extremely solemn. One should know that in the depths of the starry sky, there was a time immortal. The ancestor of the Shi clan was only a wisp of his soul. He couldn't delay the time immortal for long. The Chronoman immortal didn't even need to worry about the Chronoman immortal. All the time controllers here were more than enough to annihilate them. Their strengths were seriously unequal. At this time, the Tribulation Lord looked at Dao Ling and Xie Jun with a malevolent expression. What? Didn't you want to gang up on me? Come on, come on. Dao Ling's expression was calm. Tribulation Master, if you have the ability, then fight me one-on-one. What's the point of ganging up on me? The Tribulation Lord glared at Dao Ling. How can you be so shameless? Dao Ling, the Tribulation Lord suddenly disappeared. Chi! A bolt of lightning flashed across the battlefield. In the distance, Dao Ling narrowed his eyes slightly. He gently twirled his right hand, and a terrifying power quickly gathered in his right fist. In the next moment, he charged forward and threw a punch at the Culpa Lord. Rumble. A bolt of lightning suddenly exploded, and a figure frantically retreated from the starry sky. It was Dao Ling. After Dao Ling stopped, a trickle of blood slowly flowed out from the corner of his mouth, and the Culpa Lord charged towards him again. A ferocious look flashed across Dao Ling's eyes. Suddenly, he became illusory. Boom! With the help of the primeval god stone, the aura of his soul suddenly skyrocketed. A moment later, he transformed into an all-manifestation that charged towards the Tribulation Lord. I'll fight head-on. Rumble. A loud bang suddenly resounded between the heavens and the earth, and two figures retreated explosively at the same time. When Dao Ling stopped, his corporeal body was completely annihilated. Only his soul was left. Furthermore, his soul was extremely illusory. He had expended a lot of energy just now. He could no longer bear it. In the distance, the evil prince was silent. He couldn't help because there were three terrifying auras locking onto him. As long as he tried to help, the other party would attack as well. In the distance, the Tribulation Lord glanced at his chest. There was a deep imprint of a palm, left behind by Dao Ling just now. That palm imprint had already shattered his internal organs. After a moment of silence, the Culpa Lord looked at Dao Ling. He had to admit that he was still somewhat shocked. One should know that his cultivation level was one level higher than Dao Ling's. Furthermore, he was once a genius amongst geniuses. Otherwise, he wouldn't have become the Lord of all tribulations. However, he didn't expect Dao Ling to be able to fight against him for so long. However, it was time to end this. The Tribulation Lord opened his right hand, and a bolt of lightning suddenly appeared in his hand. In the distance, Dao Ling took a deep breath. A look of helplessness flashed in his eyes. How helpless. He had done his best. However, most of the time, you won't necessarily win just because you put your life on the line. There was still a gap between them. If he was given a little more time, he was confident that he could surpass the Culpa Lord. However, he didn't have that much time. It was time to end this. Dao Ling looked at the Culpa Lord. Although he was unwilling, it was indeed time to end this. Dao Ling suddenly turned towards the Shi clan and said softly, "Brother Yi, if you survive, please help me take care of my clansmen." As soon as he finished speaking, his soul trembled violently and started burning. Soul ignition. This was his last resort. Bang! As Dao Ling started burning his soul, a mysterious gas slowly seeped out from his body. The evil lord's pupils constricted when he saw this. The karmic luck of the great Dao. Dao Ling suddenly soared into the sky. He looked towards the Shi clan and roared with laughter. "Brother Yi, I'll help you one last time." As soon as he finished speaking, all the karmic luck within his body surged out and arrived at the Shi clan's secret realm before surging into Yi Xian's body. In the distance, the Culpa Lord's expression turned unsightly. "Have you gone mad? You've actually given all your karmic luck of the Grand Dao to Yi Xian." Dao Ling spoke fiercely, "It's none of your fucking business." The Culpa Lord was infuriated, and a ferocious expression appeared on his face. "You're dead without the karmic luck of the Grand Dao." As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly vanished on the spot. Bang! A terrifying bolt of tribulation lightning suddenly swept through the surroundings, and it shot straight towards Dao Ling. Dao Ling suddenly roared with laughter, "Bring it on." As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly vanished on the spot. Hiss! A ray of red light tore through the surroundings. It was soul ignition. Rumble. Suddenly, a ray of red light and lightning erupted in the sky, and then the Culpa Lord was blasted over 30 kilometers away. On the other hand, Dao Ling had stopped on the spot. However, his soul had become completely ethereal like a strand of smoke. His soul had been obliterated. The evil lord's pupils constricted when he witnessed this scene, and he tightened his grip on the spear in his right hand. He knew that Dao Ling was gone. At this moment, a terrifying aura suddenly shot into the sky from the secret realm in the distance. In the next moment, a ray of sword light descended in front of Dao Ling. It was Yi Xian. Yi Xian hurriedly supported Dao Ling, but he was stunned when his hand came into contact with Dao Ling's soul. Because his hand had passed through Dao Ling's soul. Now, Dao Ling's soul was almost gone. Yi Xian was horrified. He was about to speak when Dao Ling suddenly shook his head. "I can't. This time, I really can't." Yi Xian suddenly roared furiously, "Qing Xian! Xiao Hun! Xiao Hun!" However, there was no response. Yi Xian's face instantly turned ghastly pale. "Qing, there was still no response." Dao Ling suddenly said with a trembling voice, "Brother Yi, the only thing I care about is my clansmen. If you can get through this, please help me take care of my clansmen." "Thank you." As soon as he finished speaking, his soul quickly disappeared. Yi Xian was extremely horrified. He hurriedly said, "Qing, I beg you, help me save him." However, there was no response. Yi Xian wanted to say something, but Dao Ling, who was about to disappear, shook his head. "Brother Yi, if there's an afterlife, will..." Before he finished speaking, his soul suddenly disappeared completely. Looking at the emptiness in front of him, Yi Xian's mind went blank, as though he was struck by lightning. Gone. Dao Ling was really gone. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly began to panic. For the first time, Qing did not respond to him. When Qing did not respond to him, he experienced despair for the first time. Without Qing he really could not reverse many things. Pain. His heart had never been in such pain, nor had he been in such despair. Yi Xian suddenly laughed crazily. Once upon a time, he had arrogantly said that Qing should not suppress Daebi. He wanted to walk the path of the future alone. But the result? The result was that without Qing suppressing Daebi, he, Yi Xian, was nothing. Yi Xian's laughter became louder and louder. Gradually, the blood in his body surged crazily. Waves of terrifying killing intent swept around. In the distance, the Tribulation Lord looked at Yi Xian and frowned. "Do you think that going crazy will work?" "You." Yi Xian suddenly looked at the Tribulation Lord. His eyes were like a sea of blood. He said crazily, "Great Tao luck." Great Tao luck. It's all because of this damned Great Tao luck." Boom. Suddenly, the Great Tao luck within his body surged out. In the next moment, countless Great Tao luck surged towards Shirtian, Tianqi, and the evil monarch in the distance. At this moment, everyone was shocked. Because they found that Yi Xian's Great Tao luck was too much. It was more than 10 times more than Dao Ling's. And now, Yi Xian took the initiative to give his Great Tao luck to Tianqi, the evil monarch, and Shirtian. He didn't want the Great Tao luck anymore. In the distance, the Tribulation Lord stared at Yi Xian. How is this possible? At this moment, he was also shocked. Because he found that the Great Tao luck on Yi Xian was even more than the one in the Immortal Mausoleum. What did this mean? It meant that Yi Xian, who had so much Great Tao luck, was protected by Daebi. Why would Daebi protect Yi Xian like this? Of course, this was not the main point. The main point was that Yi Xian took the initiative to disperse the Great Tao luck. The Tribulation Lord stared at Yi Xian. "You're courting death." Yi Xian nodded. You're right. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly disappeared. Chi! A blood-colored sword light slashed at the Tribulation Lord in the distance. He had completely gone mad. At this moment, Yi Xian no longer had any rationality. Moreover, he didn't have the profound azure sword. In the past, with the profound azure sword, he could still maintain his last trace of sanity. But now, without the profound azure sword, he no longer had any rationality. Seeing the blood-colored sword light slash over, the Tribulation Lord's pupils shrank. He found that the power of this sword was several times stronger than before. What the hell? The Tribulation Lord was shocked. How could this guy's strength grow to this extent after he went mad? Without thinking too much, the Tribulation Lord punched out with his right hand. In an instant, countless lightning surged out of his fist. Rumble. A blood-colored sword light and lightning suddenly erupted in front of the Tribulation Lord and Yi Xian. In the next moment, a figure retreated. It was the Tribulation Lord. As soon as the Tribulation Lord stopped, another sword light slashed over. Rumble. The Tribulation Lord wasn't even able to react before he was slashed over 30 kilometers away. As soon as he stopped moving, his body shattered into pieces, and only his soul remained. The Tribulation Lord was utterly stunned. What's going on? Yi Xian suddenly vanished on the spot, and his sword slashed straight at the Tribulation Lord's soul. In the distance, the pupils of the Culpa Lord suddenly shrank. At this moment, a terrifying force suddenly hit Yi Xian's sword. Bang! Yi Xian was blasted back. Meanwhile, Sage of Book appeared in front of the Tribulation Lord. Sage of Book gazed at Yi Xian. You dispersed the karmic luck of your grand Tao. Without Daebi's protection, you'll definitely die. As soon as he finished speaking, he slowly clenched his right hand, and a terrifying force condensed within it. In the distance, Yi Xian opened his right hand, and the primeval divine sword suddenly vanished. In the next moment, the blood within his body surged, and then countless strands of blood surged out from within him and converged into a sword in his palm. Blood as a sword. Bang! In the next moment, the sword in Yi Xian's hand started burning. Bloodline ignition. Presently, he had nothing but desperately fighting for his life. P.S. Does anyone have anything to say to me during today's study? 7017K. Chapter 2266. The Sage of Book frowned when he saw Yi Xian ignite his soul. Soul ignition. After Yi Xian chose to ignite his soul, he noticed that Yi Xian's aura had suddenly risen explosively. At this moment, Yi Xian's aura wasn't normal anymore. At this moment, in the distance, Yi Xian suddenly disappeared. Hiss. A blood-red ray of light suddenly slashed down towards the Sage of Book. The Sage of Book clenched his right fist, and then he punched forward. A strand of terrifying force surged out from his fist. Rumble. An expanse of light shattered as the Sage of Book was blasted over 100 kilometers away. On the other hand, Yi Xian was blasted over 100 kilometers away as well. But in the next moment, he charged towards the Sage of Book once more. In the distance, Sage Shu stopped and looked at his right hand. There was a deep sword scar on his right fist. Yi Xian had actually injured him. A wisp of ferocity flashed through the Sage of Book's eyes, and then he suddenly vanished on the spot and smashed his fist towards Yi Xian's head. When the fist arrived before Yi Xian's head, Yi Xian actually didn't dodge at all, and he just slashed his sword towards the Sage of Book's throat. Bang! Hiss! Yi Xian instantly retreated by 30 kilometers, and his body exploded apart as soon as he stopped moving. Meanwhile, the Sage of Book's throat suddenly split open, and then a strand of blood sprayed into the surroundings. After that, his body was obliterated. Both of their bodies were obliterated at the same time. The Sage of Book's expression was extremely unsightly. The reason he'd exchanged his body for Yi Xian's was because he felt that Yi Xian's sword couldn't possibly break through his body. However, he'd underestimated the blood-red sword in Yi Xian's hand. Yi Xian's soul was still burning in the distance, and his aura was rising madly as well. Besides burning his soul, his bloodline energy was providing him with an endless supply of bloodline energy. That was why he was able to fight a time immortal right now. On the other side, the Sage of Books slowly clenched his right fist, and it didn't take long for his body to start reforming. Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly vanished on the spot. Chi! A blood-red sword light tore through the sky. In the distance, a wisp of savagery flashed through the eyes of the book sage. He suddenly charged forward, and a terrifying wave of energy shook space apart as it collided with the sword light. Fight head-on. Facing Yi Xian, he, as a time immortal, had no reason to retreat. Rumble. In the distant space-time, a blood-red sword light and a terrifying force suddenly erupted. In an instant, the space-time in an area of a few million meters was directly obliterated and turned pitch black. In this pitch-black space and time, two figures frantically retreated. It was Yi Xian and the book sage. As soon as Yi Xian stopped, he slowly closed his eyes. In the next moment, a sword suddenly appeared above the head of the book sage in the distance. Sever the future. The sudden attack caused Sage Shu's face to change slightly. However, he reacted quickly and dodged the attack with a sidestep. The sword pierced through the sky and disappeared into the starry sky. But in the next moment, hundreds of swords suddenly appeared around him. Sage Book's expression instantly changed drastically. Because these hundreds of swords didn't appear at the same time, and each one was slightly later than the last. Slashing the future. The book sage was shocked and didn't dare to be careless. He raised his hands and a thick ancient book suddenly flew out from within him. In the next moment, rays of violet light surged out from the ancient book. At the same time, a mysterious and strange sound resounded in the surroundings. The sound was extremely old and seemed to come from ancient times. Rumble. Terrifying explosions resounded incessantly around the book sage. Just at this moment, Yi Xian suddenly vanished on the spot. The book sage's pupils constricted, and he suddenly charged forward and punched out. Once again. Rumble. Along with a deafening explosion, Yi Xian retreated over 30 kilometers away. However, at practically the exact same moment, a few dozen rays of light enveloped the book sage. An instant later, a terrifying force suddenly surged out from the rays of light, and then they were instantly obliterated. After that, the book sage walked out slowly with the ancient book in hand. At this moment, there were no less than a dozen injuries on his body, and it was especially so on his face. That injury had practically torn his entire face apart. The Tribulation Lord, Master Yun, and the others instantly revealed extremely solemn expressions when they witnessed this scene. They hadn't imagined that Yi Xian would actually be able to fight the book sage to such an extent. It was too terrifying. Master Yun spoke in a low voice, "He's overexerting himself." The Tribulation Lord nodded. They were very clearly aware that the reason Yi Xian's combat strength had become so ferocious was because Yi Xian had utilized a secret technique to forcefully overexerting himself. So, it would take 15 minutes at most for Yi Xian to exhaust himself to death. The book sage stared fixedly at Yi Xian, and then he suddenly flipped open the ancient book in his hand. In the next moment, an afterimage suddenly flew out from within the ancient book, and then it charged towards Yi Xian. Hiss! The sound of something tearing apart resounded abruptly. Yi Xian suddenly opened his eyes, and a monstrous ocean of blood surged within them as he swiftly drew his sword and slashed. Hiss! Bang! Along with the sound of something tearing apart and an explosion, Yi Xian was blasted back by the afterimage, and he moved over 30 kilometers back. However, the afterimage had charged over to him again. Moreover, the book sage had vanished on the spot as well. Suddenly, Yi Xian raised his head, and then the energy of time in an area of 3 kilometers suddenly converged within him. He'd mobilized the river of time. Yi Xian swiftly drew his sword and slashed. Draw the sword to decide life and death. Yi Xian had overlapped 150,000 strands of energy with this attack. The river of stars in the surroundings was instantly obliterated. Rumble. The afterimage was instantly slashed into pieces by Yi Xian's attack. As for the book sage who'd charged towards Yi Xian, he was blasted over 100 kilometers away. As soon as he stopped moving, Yi Xian appeared in front of him again, and then Yi Xian drew his sword and slashed again. Draw the sword to decide life and death. Bang! An expanse of light instantly enveloped the book sage. Rumble. A world-shaking explosion resounded as the book sage was blasted flying. At practically the exact same moment, a blood-red sword suddenly flew over to the book sage. Rumble. The light from the sword shattered, and the book sage was blasted back once more. This time, his soul had instantly dimmed down. The expressions of the Culpa Lord and the others instantly changed violently when they witnessed this scene. We're in danger. The Culpa Lord was about to act when Master Yun stopped him. Master Yun looked towards the distance and spoke softly, only the book sage can fight him right now. We'll be courting death if we act against him. The Culpa Lord fell silent. Regardless of whether he was willing or not, he had to admit that Yi Xian's strength had attained the age Immortal realm, and those beneath the age Immortal realm weren't a match for Yi Xian. After the book sage was blasted back, he suddenly opened the ancient book in his hand. In the next moment, a strand of terrifying force erupted from within the book, and then countless ancient characters shot into the sky and shot into the starry sky. After that, the ancient characters actually condensed into a huge sword that held an extremely terrifying force within it. A ferocious expression flashed through the book sage's eyes, and then he suddenly charged forward. The huge sword tore through the sky and slashed down towards Yi Xian. Yi Xian clenched the blood-red sword in his right hand. At this moment, his soul was growing more and more illusory. Actually, it wouldn't take another 10 minutes for him to vanish. However, the book sage clearly didn't want to wait that long. Under everyone's gaze, the giant sword streaked across the starry sky and then came to the top of Yi Xian's head. However, to everyone's surprise, Yi Xian did not dodge at all. He just let the sword sink into his head. Everyone was stunned. Rumble. Right at this moment, a terrifying force suddenly swept out from Yi Xian's body. In an instant, the book sage who just arrived in front of Yi Xian was blasted hundreds of kilometers back by this terrifying force. Bang! When the book sage stopped moving, he was stunned, and his eyes were filled with disbelief as he gazed at Yi Xian whose aura was rising explosively. This. It wasn't just the book sage, everyone else here was stunned as well. What's going on? Is this fellow devouring that huge sword? Impossible. The book sage gazed at Yi Xian with disbelief in his eyes. That's absolutely impossible. At this moment, in the distance, Yi Xian suddenly opened his eyes. At this moment, his soul, which had been incorporeal, started to solidify. Not only that, but Yi Xian's aura also skyrocketed crazily. Yi Xian suddenly vanished on the spot. Hiss! A blood-red sword suddenly appeared above the book sage. The book sage's expression instantly changed violently. He opened his right hand, and the ancient book in his hand flew up and transformed into a screen that blocked above his head. Rumble. The sword descended, and the ancient book trembled violently. Immediately after, the powerful force blasted the book sage several tens of thousands of meters away. Yi Xian swept his sword, and the thick ancient book was directly swept before Shirtian in the distance. Shirtian was stunned, and then he put the book away. At this moment, Yi Xian's consciousness had recovered slightly because the energy of the huge sword was truly too terrifying, and it allowed him to faintly show signs of breaking through. Yi Xian raised his head to look at the book sage, and the latter's expression was unsightly to the extreme. How did you devour my book sword? Why? He'd never understood how Yi Xian could actually devour his book sword. Yi Xian didn't answer, and he suddenly vanished on the spot. The book sage's pupils constricted, and his soul suddenly became illusory. In the next moment, he'd retreated over 30 kilometers away. He didn't choose to go head-on against Yi Xian. because he found Yi Xian's strength was many times stronger than before. Even that ancient book of his could not withstand Yi Xian's strength, not to mention he was just a soul now. In the distance, Yi Xian suddenly vanished on the spot once more, and the book sage vanished as well. He'd retreated over 30 kilometers again, and he'd pulled some distance away from Yi Xian. Yi Xian's eyes closed slowly. The book sage's eyes narrowed slightly. Right at this moment, he suddenly raised his head. In the next moment, the space in the sky suddenly split apart, and then a golden screen of light swept down from the depths of the starry sky. A middle-aged man walked down slowly from within the golden screen of light. The time immortal. The book sage instantly heaved a sigh of relief when he saw this middle-aged man, and then he raised his head to look at Yi Xian. "My people are here." As he spoke, a wisp of a savage smile arose on the corners of his mouth. What's the point of a one-on-one battle? This is an era where people compete in numbers. Is that so? Right at this moment, an icy cold voice suddenly resounded from the depths of the boundless starry sky. Compete in numbers? Yi Xian's figure trembled slightly when he heard this voice. Chapter 2267. Who is it? The Sage of Books' eyes narrowed slightly as he looked towards the starry sky in the distance. A woman was walking over slowly. It was none other than Dong Linen. The next moment, Dong Linen showed up in front of Yi Xian. When he saw Yi Xian, who was covered in blood, Dong Linen's eyes suddenly welled up with tears. Dong Linen hugged Yi Xian tightly and spoke in a trembling voice. "Xian." Yi Xian spoke softly. "Mother." Dong Linen suddenly turned to look at the Sage of Book, and her peerlessly beautiful face was extremely ferocious at this moment. "So you want to compete in numbers?" The Sage of Book looked at Dong Linen and was about to speak. Suddenly, a figure descended from the sky. In the next moment, the Sage of Book's pupils constricted, and he was just about to retreat when a hand clamped down on his throat. Bang! A terrifying force locked onto the Sage of Book, and he couldn't move at all. The Sage of Book's eyes were filled with terror as he looked at the old man. "You, what realm are you?" The old man's face was emotionless as he turned to look at Dong Linen. Dong Linen's face was expressionless. Letting him die now would be letting him off too easily. The old man nodded slightly and didn't kill him. Meanwhile, the time immortal who had just arrived spoke abruptly. "You are." His pupils constricted before he could finish speaking, and he swiftly turned around. Meanwhile, a ray of light suddenly slashed towards him. The time moon immortal was greatly shocked in his heart. He suddenly raised his right hand and a terrifying time energy swept out from his body. Rumble. The ray of light was blocked, but in the next moment, another ray of light slashed down. Bang! The terrifying time energy shattered abruptly, and then the time immortal retreated explosively. As soon as he stopped moving, a sword was placed against his neck. They were stunned. Everyone in the surroundings was stunned. A time immortal was subdued just like that? What kind of terrifying expert is this? The time immortal looked at the swordsman in disbelief. "You, who the hell are you?" The swordsman's expression was indifferent. He did not speak but turned to look at Dong Linen. Dong Linen was expressionless. "Let him live first." Swordsman nodded. Dong Linen turned to look at Yi Xian. The coldness in her eyes instantly turned gentle as she asked softly, "Are you all right?" Yi Xian was silent. Dong Linen felt a pang in his heart. "I shouldn't have listened to your father." Yi Xian said softly, "Father is not wrong. Before this, I thought I was extraordinary. I thought that without him and Qing'er, I could still make a name for myself. But the cruel reality tells me that without him and Qing'er, I can do nothing." Dong Li Nan shook his head. "It's not your fault. Your father's enemy was not as perverted as you think. You are wrong to compare yourself to him." Yi Xian shook his head slightly, a pained expression on his face. He didn't say anything else. Dao Ling. At the thought of Dao Ling disappearing from this world forever, his heart felt like it was being pricked by needles. Dong Linen said softly, "They don't care about you, but I do. After saying that, she turned to look at the leader of the group, Sage of Book. You are from the Immortal Mausoleum. Sage of Book's expression was incomparably solemn. You are? Dong Linan was expressionless. I am his mother. Sage of Book glanced at Yi Xian and was stunned. This guy's mother? Dong Linan suddenly said, to the Immortal Mausoleum. Lead the way. Lead the way. Sage of Book's expression changed drastically. You. What are you doing? Dong Linan looked at Sage of Book with a cold expression. I said lead the way. You don't understand? Sage of Book's expression was extremely ugly. This woman knew about the Immortal Mausoleum, but she still went there. What did this mean? It meant that she was not afraid of the Immortal Mausoleum. Thinking of this, cold sweat dripped from Sage of Book's forehead. At this time, Dong Linan said again. Lead the way. Just as Sage of Book was about to speak, he suddenly felt his throat tighten and his soul became illusory. Sage of Book was greatly shocked. He hurriedly said, I will lead the way. He knew that if he dared to shake his head, he would be erased in an instant. After cultivating for so long to reach time immortal, he was naturally unwilling to be erased just like that. Under Sage of Book's lead, everyone stood up and headed towards the Immortal Mausoleum. Tian Qi, Shi Tian, and Xie Jun followed closely behind. Along the way, Yi Xian looked into the distance in silence. No one knew what he was thinking. Dong Linan stood beside Yi Xian and said softly, Are you angry? Yi Xian shook his head. No. Dong Linan sighed softly. She gently rubbed Yi Xian's head and did not say anything else. At this time, Tian Qi suddenly walked in front of Yi Xian. He took out a piece of meat and handed it to Yi Xian. Yi Xian looked at Tian Qi. Tian Qi just looked at him without saying a word. Yi Xian was stunned for a long time. Then, he took the meat and started gnawing on it. At the side, Shi Tian suddenly said softly, Brother Yi, your great Tao karmic luck. Yi Xian shook his head, I don't want it. You guys keep it. Shi Tian shook his head, it's yours. You, Yi Xian looked at Shi Tian, you keep it. Shi Tian was silent. He could feel that Yi Xian really did not care about this great Tao karmic luck. At this time, Dong Linan suddenly said, They are your friends? Yi Xian nodded. Dong Linan was silent for a moment. Then, she said, Elder Jun. As his voice fell, the swordsman old man suddenly appeared beside Dong Linan. Dong Linan said softly, Give the three of them some pointers. The swordsman old man nodded slightly, Okay. After saying that, he turned to look at Shi Tian, Tian Qi, and Jun Xie, Follow me. Shi Tian and Jun Xie looked at each other, and then they hurriedly followed. This swordsman old man had almost killed Time Moon Immortal with a single sword strike. He was a super big shot. At this moment, Shi Tian suddenly stopped and turned to look at Tian Qi. Tian Qi, what are you doing? Tian Qi took out the meat and continued to chew. Obviously, he had no interest in the pointers. In his eyes, there was only meat. Seeing that Tian Qi did not move, Shi Tian immediately glared at him, and then he hurriedly walked over to Tian Qi and pulled him away. At the side, Sage Shu and the others had extremely ugly expressions. They knew that they had offended a superpower. This time, it was a big deal. Dong Linan ignored them, and Sage Shu and the others did not dare to run. Running was the same as courting death. As Dong Linan and the others left, within the primeval shrine, the primeval god tree rushed into the primeval shrine. A moment later, crazy laughter suddenly resounded. This laughter belonged to the primeval god race patriarch, Primeval Yuan. Primeval Yuan laughed even louder. He had gambled correctly. This time, he had gambled correctly. This youth's background was truly extraordinary. There was hope for the primeval race to return to Primeval City. As he laughed, tears flowed down Primeval Yuan's cheeks. Those were bitter tears. Not long after, Dong Linen and the others entered an unknown star field. This star field was boundless, and there were experts flying around from time to time. Their auras were extremely strong, but there were very few time immortals. Immortal Mausoleum Cosmos. The Immortal Mausoleum occupied a cosmos. When everyone entered the Immortal Mausoleum Cosmos, a terrifying aura directly locked onto Yi Xian and the others. Dong Linen frowned. Kill them. As her voice fell, an old man beside her suddenly disappeared. The next moment, the space-time at the end of the distant starry sky suddenly exploded. Then, a mournful scream suddenly rang out. Boom! At this moment, the entire Immortal Mausoleum Cosmos was shocked. An enemy was invading? Soon, an old man suddenly appeared in front of Dong Linen and the others. When this old man saw Sage Shu and the others, he frowned. Sage Shu, you. As he said this, he seemed to have discovered something. His pupils suddenly shrank. You, Sage Shu nodded. Inform the Tomb Lord. Tomb Lord. The old man was shocked. He did not dare to hesitate and quickly turned to leave. He knew that this matter was not simple. Dong Linen suddenly turned to look at Yi Xian and said softly, how do you want to deal with it? After a moment of silence, Yi Xian said, kill them. Kill them. Dong Linen nodded, okay. As her voice fell, she suddenly took out a token. The next moment, the token shot into the sky and disappeared into the starry sky. At this moment, a middle-aged man suddenly appeared. This person was the Immortal Mausoleum's Tomb Lord, Dao Ming. Dao Ming's gaze fell on Dong Linen and he frowned because he had never seen Dong Linen before. He basically knew all the top experts and top forces in the known universe, but he had never seen Dong Linen and the others before. Where did they come from? Dao Ming frowned slightly. Dong Linen's face remained emotionless. There's no need to waste your breath. Elder Jun, Elder Gu, kill them. Kill anyone you see. As soon as he finished speaking, Elder Jun suddenly transformed into a ray of light that charged forward. OM. A sword howl resounded throughout the Tomb of Immortals. A wisp of ferocity flashed through Dao Ming's eyes when he saw Elder Jun attack. Do you think my Tomb of Immortals is easy to bully? As soon as he finished speaking, numerous terrifying auras suddenly shot into the sky from the depths of the starry sky behind him. They were top-rate experts that surpassed the time immortal realm. Dong Linen's face remained emotionless as she disregarded them. Kill them. As soon as she finished speaking, over 20 powerful auras suddenly surged out from not too far away from her. Every single one of them was actually at the time immortal realm. Dao Ming's pupils constricted when he witnessed this scene. There are actually so many time immortals here. What sort of power is this? He had no answer. At this moment, he didn't have the time to investigate because both sides had entered into battle. They were directly suppressed. Elder Jun and the others had directly suppressed the top-rate experts of the Tomb of Immortals. No, they were directly bashed up. Dao Ming's eyes were filled with disbelief when he witnessed this scene. Right at this moment, the space in the sky suddenly split apart, and then over a dozen terrifying auras assaulted the Tomb of Immortals. The time immortal realm. All the experts of the Tomb of Immortals were stunned when they witnessed this scene. Where did these experts come from? Dong Linen suddenly gazed at Sage Shu. Didn't you want to compete in numbers? Come, my Yang clan will compete with all of you. If you think it's not enough, then I'll summon another 1,000 time immortals. Everyone was speechless. P.S. Reader, is a single monthly ticket enough? If it isn't, then I'll give you another 1,000. Green Yuan, it's not enough. Reader, here. 7,017K. Chapter 2268. 1,000 time immortals. Everyone was stunned when they heard this. Are time immortals as common as cabbages? After all, even the Immortal Mausoleum only had a few dozen time immortals, but this woman actually said that she could summon 1,000. Is she trying to scare me? Dao Ming stared fixedly at Dong Linen. Go on. Go on. He wanted to bet that she couldn't summon 1,000 time immortals. Dong Linen's face remained emotionless when she heard Dao Ming. She opened her palm, and a sword command token suddenly shot into the sky and instantly vanished into the starry sky. After a while, the depths of the starry sky suddenly trembled. In the next moment, a terrifying aura spread out from the depths of the starry sky. In an instant, the starry sky was boiling. Then, terrifying experts appeared in the starry sky. Dao Ming's pupils constricted when he witnessed this scene, and his eyes were filled with disbelief. Ha ha ha. Meanwhile, roaring laughter resounded. Do you want to fight? It didn't take long for over 1,000 time immortals to appear in the sky above the Immortal Mausoleum. Everyone here was stunned. Over 1,000 time immortals had really come. Dao Ming and the others had extremely unsightly expressions on their faces, and it was like they'd eaten shit. At this moment, he finally felt slightly panicked. Where did these people come from? As soon as the time immortals arrived, they immediately bowed to Dong Linen, and they didn't conceal their respect for her at all. Meanwhile, Dong Linen suddenly gazed at Yi Xian. My son. Son. Everyone here was slightly stunned, and then they hurriedly bowed. Greetings, young master. Young master. The Tribulation Lord's face instantly turned ghastly pale. Young master. Actually, he knew that they were finished since Dong Linen had appeared. They were completely finished. It was definitely a terrifying extraordinary power, and the facts proved that he was right. However, he hadn't imagined that Yi Xian's background would actually be so terrifying. 1,000 time immortals. What did that mean? It was too terrifying. It wasn't just the Tribulation Lord, all the experts of the Immortal Mausoleum were stunned. Over 1,000 time immortals. Are they demons? All the time immortal realm experts in the surroundings were sizing up Yi Xian with curiosity. This was the son of the Sword Master. They were naturally curious. Meanwhile, Dao Ming suddenly said, There's no enmity between my immortal tomb and all of you, so why are all of you acting in this way? Dong Linen sneered, No enmity? Are you kidding me? Your Immortal Mausoleum sent 2 time immortals to kill my son, and you're telling me that we have no enmity between us? Dao Ming frowned slightly. In the next moment, he looked at Saint of Books and the others. Did you do this? Sage of Books' expression was somewhat ugly. Dao Ming's expression instantly turned icy cold when he saw Sage of Books' expression. He glanced coldly at Sage of Book, and then he looked towards the south. Sir, this was done by an individual from my Immortal Mausoleum. It has nothing to do with our Immortal Mausoleum. Don't worry, I will definitely give you an explanation. A wisp of ridicule arose on the corners of Dong Linen's mouth. Explanation? I don't need you to give me anything, too. Slaughter all the experts in the Immortal Mausoleum. As soon as she finished speaking, the people behind her charged towards the experts from the Immortal Mausoleum. Seeing this, Dao Ming's expression changed drastically. He wanted to say something, but a sword light had already slashed in front of him. Slaughter. Under the joint attack of over 1,000 times celestial powerhouses, the powerful celestial mausoleum was directly defeated. It didn't even have the strength to put up a fight. Even though the Immortal Mausoleum activated all of its array formations, it was of no use. What followed was a massacre. A frenzied massacre. Screams rang out in the Divine Mausoleum. On the other hand, the countenances of Sage Shu and the others were pale, and their eyes were filled with despair. It's over. The Immortal Mausoleum was finished just like that. In front of this group of experts, the Immortal Mausoleum had almost no ability to retaliate. Right at this moment, a terrifying aura suddenly shot into the sky from within the mausoleum. It didn't take long for an old man to appear in the sky above the mausoleum. This person was the Immortal Tomb Patriarch. The appearance of the Immortal Tomb's Patriarch ignited hope in the hearts of countless despairing Immortal Tomb experts. Countless experts of the Immortal Mausoleum knelt down and kowtowed. The Patriarch of the Mausoleum Immortal glanced at the battlefield, and his expression instantly darkened. He looked down at the southeast and was about to speak when several afterimages suddenly rushed in front of him. His expression changed drastically, and he flicked his sleeves. Boom! With a loud explosion, the Immortal Mausoleum Patriarch was directly reduced to ashes. Everyone was dumbfounded. He's gone just like that? Dong Linen's face was expressionless. Continue the slaughter. Don't leave a single one alive. All the experts charged directly into the mausoleum. This slaughter continued for an entire 2 hours, and all the experts of the Immortal Tomb universe were annihilated. Of course, the Culpa Lord and Sage Shu hadn't died because Dong Linen wanted them to personally witness how the Yang clan slaughtered the Immortal Tomb. At this moment, Sage Shu and the Culpa Lord's faces were ashen. It's over. Everything is over. Meanwhile, Dong Linen turned around to look at the Culpa Lord and Sage Shu. Didn't you want to compete in numbers and bully others? Sage Shu's face was ashen. Why speak so much? If you want to kill me, then kill me. Beg for mercy? That was impossible. Because doing that would only be asking to be humiliated. Dong Linen waved his right hand lightly. An ray of light suddenly stabbed into the center of Sage Shu's forehead. Bang! Sage Shu's soul shattered and was obliterated. Dong Linen looked at the distant Culpa Lord. The Culpa Lord suddenly looked at Yi Xian and stared fixedly at Yi Xian. Is it interesting? Is it? You're acting like a pig to eat a tiger. First, you're weak, and then you allow the people behind you to clear the battlefield. Is it interesting to do that? Yi Xian glanced at the Culpa Lord and said, You want to bite me? The Culpa Lord flared up with rage, but a ray of light shot into the center of his forehead in the next moment. Bang! The Culpa Lord's body exploded apart, and countless bolts of lightning vanished. He'd been completely wiped out. All of a sudden, the surroundings fell silent. The formidable Immortal Tomb had been destroyed just like that. Meanwhile, an old man walked over to Dong Linen's side, and he spoke in a low voice. One of them escaped. Dong Linen's beautiful brows knit together slightly when she heard this. The old man spoke in a low voice. That person possesses karmic luck of the Grand Tao. Our people underestimated his strength and were killed by him. Dong Linen's expression was calm. Pursue him. Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly said, There's no need. Dong Linen gazed at Yi Xian, and Yi Xian said, He'll come looking for me. Dong Linen hesitated for a moment before she nodded, All right. Yi Xian gazed at Dong Linen and spoke softly, Mother, help me do one more thing, all right? Dong Linen rolled her eyes at Yi Xian, silly child. There's no need to be so polite to a family member. Yi Xian nodded slightly, and then he turned around, Senior Primeval Yuan, come on out. Space suddenly split apart in the distance, and then an old man walked out slowly. It was Primeval Yuan. Actually, he'd arrived a very long time ago. He'd personally witnessed the destruction of the Immortal Tomb. Needless to say, he was shocked to the extreme. It was so powerful that the Immortal Tomb had actually been destroyed just like that. Who would dare to believe it? Yi Xian gazed at Primeval Yuan and spoke softly, Senior, ask your clansmen to prepare themselves. We're heading to Primeval City. Primeval Yuan was slightly stunned, and then he hurriedly said, Thank you, young Master Yi. As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and left. Yi Xian gazed off into the distance, and no one knew what he was thinking. Dong Linen spoke softly, Do you want to come with me? Yi Xian thought for a moment, and then he shook his head. Dong Linen spoke in a low voice, I don't want you to shoulder too much. Yi Xian shook his head, There are some things that I have no choice but to shoulder. Dong Linen sighed in his heart. Just as Yi Xian had said, there were some things that he had no choice but to shoulder. To be the second generation for life, or to be the first generation. It was obvious that he chose the latter. Right at this moment, an old man appeared before Dong Linen, and he bowed slightly before placing a spatial ring in front of Dong Linen. Mistress, the entire Immortal Tomb's wealth is in this ring. Dong Linen received the spatial ring, and then he turned around and placed it in Yi Xian's hand. keep it. Some didn't refuse and directly put the spatial ring away. Yi Xian suddenly asked, Mother, who are they? Dong Linan glanced at the experts in the surroundings and smiled, You're talking about them? Yi Xian nodded. Dong Linan smiled, They are people who have received your father's grace, and there are also some who have voluntarily followed your father, follower. Yi Xian fell silent. At this moment, Dong Linan suddenly said, Do you have the confidence to deal with that great Tao Providence contender in the immortal tomb? Yi Xian nodded, He will come find me. Let me do it myself. Dong Linan nodded, Good. I believe in you. At this moment, Primeval Yuan arrived with the ancient race experts. There weren't many, only less than 10,000. The once glorious ancient race only had less than 10,000 people left. It had to be said that this was a bit sad. Primeval Yuan hurriedly walked in front of Yi Xian, Young Master Yi. Yi Xian nodded slightly, Lead the way. Primeval Yuan excitedly said, Thank you. Yi Xian shook his head, I should be the one thanking you. Thank you for your help. Primeval Yuan faintly smiled. It had to be said that this was the most discerning investment he had ever made in his life. He had won the bet. But this wasn't the important point. The important point was that the ancient race had now become friends with Yi Xian. Becoming friends with Yi Xian was the same as becoming friends with a massive and terrifying influence. This lucky chance was what he valued the most. After becoming friends with such a terrifying influence, who would dare cause trouble for the primal god race in the future? This was simply a huge profit. It wasn't long before they arrived at the primeval god domain under Primeval Yuan's lead. This was the former home of the primeval god clan, and a terrifying aura enveloped everyone as soon as they entered the primeval god domain. Dong Linan frowned. At this time, old June suddenly said, Matriarch, be careful. There are some Sara walkers here. Dong Linan nodded, It's fine. It's just trash. Old June, on the side, an old man said, Matriarch, do we need to mobilize the Yang family army? The Yang family army. Yi Xian was startled. Then, he looked at Dong Linan and softly said, What is the Yang family army? Nan Linan smiled, It was established by me and your Auntie Su, specifically to protect the Yang clan. Yi Xian asked in a deep voice, Is he very strong? Dong Li Nan blinked his eyes. Just one person is enough to sweep away all the experts here. Yi Xian was speechless. Yi Xian was speechless. His originally firm heart of cultivation began to waver again. Should he go back and inherit the family property? 7017K. Chapter 2269. It had to be said that even he did not know how terrifying the power of the Yang family was. What was shown now was just the tip of the iceberg. At this moment, a shadow suddenly appeared in front of Dong Linan and the others. The illusory figure glanced coldly at the distant primordial Yuan. Instead of dragging out an ignoble existence, why did you come back? Primeval Yuan glanced at the phantom, and then he said, Man Tian, long time no see. The illusory figure called Man Tian suddenly waved his right hand, and a terrifying force swept towards immemorial Yuan. Old Master Jun suddenly drew his sword and slashed. Boom! That terrifying power was directly torn apart. Man Tian looked at old Jun and narrowed his eyes. Who are you? Dong Linan glanced at Man Tian and said, The primal god race wants to return to Primeval City, do you have any objections? Man Tian was so angry that he laughed. You think I'll go back just because you say so? Southeast suddenly shouted, Kill! Old Man Jun suddenly rushed out. Chi! A wisp of sword light suddenly tore through the sky. Rumble! Man Tian was forced back several tens of thousands of feet by the sword. Elder Jun was about to attack again when an old man suddenly appeared here, and the old man said, Wait. Dong Linan waved his right hand lightly and Senior Jun retreated to the side. The old man glanced towards the south, and then he said, My Manhuang clan of gods is willing to withdraw from Primeval City. In the distance, Man Tian angrily said, Patriarch. The old man coldly looked at Man Tian, shut up. Man Tian's heart trembled, and he didn't dare to speak again. He knew that the patriarch was angry. Dong Linan looked at the old man and didn't say anything. He was hesitating. The old man had obviously discerned Southeast's intentions, and he hurriedly said, Your Excellency, my barbaric divine clan will withdraw from the primeval city from now on, and will never return to the primeval city again. If we violate this oath, then my barbaric divine clan will vanish from this world. East Linan was silent for a moment. Then, he said, I will allow you to leave, but you must remember your words. If your wild god race dares to cause trouble for the primal god race again, I will make sure you all completely disappear from this world. The old man quickly said, I understand. Dong Linan waved his hand, let's go. The old man quickly turned around and left. Not long after, countless experts from the desolate lands of God clan left the primeval city. Their speed was extremely fast, and in a short time, the entire primeval city became an empty city. Primeval Yuan brought a group of primal god race powerhouses to the city gates. As he looked at the walls in front of him, his eyes were blank. How many years has it been? On the battlefield, the primal god race powerhouses found it hard to contain their excitement. He was finally back. Seeming to have thought of something, Primeval Yuan turned to look at Yi Xian in the distance. He quickly walked up to Yi Xian and bowed deeply. Thank you, young Master Yi. Yi Xian asked, then who is the god tribe of the wilderness? Primeval Yuan bitterly smiled. They were mortal enemies of our primal god race. Afterwards, they grew stronger and stronger, thus we were suppressed. Afterwards, we escaped. At this point, he sighed softly, and his tone was filled with complicated emotions. Yi Xian nodded. I don't think they will dare to cause trouble for you anymore. Primeval Yuan smiled and said, I know. That man Tian didn't have a brain, so he couldn't clearly see the situation. But, he knew that the patriarch of the wilderness god race could. This group of people in front of him was absolutely not someone that the wilderness god race could provoke. Yi Xian suddenly said, Senior, then we will bid our farewells. Primeval Yuan hesitated for a moment and then said, Young Master Yi, take care. Yi Xian nodded. Until we meet again. After speaking, he turned to East Linan and said, Mother, let's go. East Linan nodded. Soon, everyone left. Primeval Yuan looked into the distant horizon and softly said, How terrifying. On another side. After the wilderness god race patriarch led the group of wilderness god race powerhouses away, some of the wilderness god race powerhouses remained unconvinced. In the starry skies, everyone began to clamor. Shut up. At this time, the wilderness god race patriarch suddenly flew into a rage. Everyone quieted down and looked at the patriarch. The wilderness god race patriarch's complexion was extremely ugly. Do you think I want to leave Primeval City? Don't you see the powerhouses that woman brought? The weakest among them is a time immortal, and there are more than 1,000 of them. The ones leading them are samsara walkers. With such a terrifying force, what can our wilderness god race use to fight against them? In the field, the wilderness god race powerhouses were silent. At this time, an old man suddenly said in a low voice, What force are they? The wilderness god race patriarch shook his head, I don't know. I don't know. This was the most terrifying thing. In the current multiverse, he was very clear about some of the super forces, but he had never seen East Linan and the others. What did this mean? This meant that this was a super force that surpassed their understanding. This was also the reason why he decisively admitted defeat and left Primeval City. At this time, an old man said in a low voice, Patriarch, are we just going to leave like this? The wilderness god race patriarch was silent, his face gloomy. No one knew what he was thinking. At this time, an old man suddenly appeared in the field. It was Old June. The wilderness god race patriarch frowned when he saw Old June. The other wilderness god race powerhouses all raised their guard. Old June glanced at the wilderness god race patriarch and said, "The matriarch asked me to pass on a message to you. She has no interest in participating in the grudge between you and the primal god race. The reason we are helping the primal god race is because they helped our young master. We are only here to repay a debt of gratitude, that is all." The wilderness god race patriarch said in a low voice, "Who are you?" Old June said, "The Yang clan." The wilderness god race patriarch frowned. "The Yang clan? I've never heard of it." Old June nodded. "It's normal that you've never heard of it, because we aren't from this universe." As he spoke, he turned and looked around. "Is the strongest force in this universe the Fey celestial race?" The wilderness god race patriarch nodded. "Yes." Old June had a calm expression. The ancestor of the Fey celestial race, Fey celestial, was imprisoned by the sword master for several hundred years because of his offensive words. He has only been released now. Hearing this, the wilderness god race patriarch's pupils shrank. "You," Old June had a calm expression. "Did you see that youth just now?" The wilderness god race patriarch nodded. "I saw him." Old June said, "He is the young master of the Yang clan. He is currently adventuring outside. If he meets you in the future, I hope you can make things easier for him." The wilderness god race patriarch hurriedly said, "Of course. Of course." Old June nodded. He opened his palm and a spatial ring slowly floated in front of the wilderness god race patriarch. "There is an inheritance within this that will allow you to surpass the samsara walker." The god tribe patriarch of the barbarian wilderness was taken aback. He took the spatial ring and scanned it with his divine sense. In the next moment, his expression changed dramatically. Then, he became excited. He hurriedly looked at Senior June and said in a trembling voice, "Thank you, thank you." Old June nodded. "Farewell." With that, he turned and disappeared into the distant horizon. On the battlefield, the wilderness god race patriarch suddenly laughed like a madman. What a bloody profit. This father of the wilderness god race has earned a bloody profit. The wilderness god race powerhouses were dumbfounded. The god tribe patriarch of the barbarian wilderness suddenly thought of something. He waved his right hand, and Yi Xian's face appeared on the battlefield. He shouted, "Remember this person well. If you meet him in the future, be polite. If this person needs help, do your best to help. Do you hear me? Everyone." On the other side. In the starry sky, Dong Linan looked at Yi Xian. "Are you really not coming with me?" Yi Xian shook his head. "Not for now. I will find you in the future." After a moment of silence, Dong Linan said, "Okay." As she spoke, she turned to look at Old Man June. "How are the three little fellows?" Old June nodded. "They are rare geniuses. Now, they have become time controllers. If they want to become time immortals, it is up to them. However, for the three of them, becoming time immortals is only a matter of time." Dong Linan nodded. "Okay." She looked at Yi Xian. "Then I am leaving." Yi Xian nodded. "Mother, take care." Dong Linan smiled. She tidied up Yi Xian's messy clothes. "You too." Yi Xian nodded. "Okay." Dong Linan hugged Yi Xian. Then, she took out a spatial ring and quietly placed it in Yi Xian's hand. Then, she turned and left. The strong ones bowed slightly to Yi Xian and then turned around to leave. Yi Xian looked at the starry sky in the distance. His right hand gripped the spatial ring tightly. His heart was filled with complicated emotions. Far away in the depths of the starry sky, Dong Linan suddenly stopped. Behind her, the group of super experts suddenly became excited. All of them bowed deeply to the person in front of them, showing extreme respect. Not far away, there stood a man in a green robe. Sword Master. Dong Linan slowly walked to the man's side. "Why didn't you give it to him yourself?" The man in green laughed. "Is there a difference if I give it to you or me?" Dong Linen rolled her eyes at the man in green. Of course there is a difference. Also, there is a huge difference. The man in green shook his head and did not speak. Dong Linen sighed. You father and son, the green-robed man said softly, Tian Ming, brother Xiaoyao, and I have high hopes for him. We hope that he can reach our level in the future, or even surpass us. In the future, the order of the universe must be controlled by him. Otherwise, Tian Ming and I will not be at ease. The one in the Milky Way has an ambiguous attitude. His intentions are unclear. We dare not gamble. Saying that, he shook his head. His expression was rather complicated. Dong Linen said in a deep voice, Can't we kill him? The man in green smiled. We can. But not now. Dong Linen was puzzled. Why? The man in green sighed. Because strictly speaking, he is not a bad person. Also, saying that, he shook his head helplessly. The three of us have jumped out of the circle. But that little guy has not. We still need him. Saying that, he suddenly shook his head and smiled. Let's not talk about these complicated things. Let's go. Dong Linen suddenly said. Since you want to train him, why do you still want us to help him? The man in green rolled his eyes at Dong Linen. I want to train him, but I don't want to kill him. Why? In your hearts, do you really think that he is not my biological son? Dong Linen, P.S. When the update is over. Reader, Luan's good brother. When the update is over. Reader, Luan's good brother. When the vote is over. Reader, not a single hair. 7017K. Chapter 2270. After Dong Linen and the rest left, Yi Xian was silent for a long time. At this moment, Shi Tian, the evil lord, and Tian Qi walked to his side. Shi Tian said softly, Brother Yi? Yi Xian shook his head, Brother Dao Ling, heh. At this moment, laughter was heard from the side. Yi Xian and the rest were stunned. The next moment, they turned their heads and saw a man standing not far away. When they saw the man, Yi Xian and the rest were stunned. It was Dao Ling. However, Dao Ling was in soul form. Shi Tian was shocked, Brother Dao Ling, didn't you already? Dao Ling laughed heartily. Are you surprised? To be honest, I am surprised too. Shi Tianyao smiled. He walked in front of Dao Ling and gave him a big hug. Dao Ling looked at Yi Xian from afar, Your sister saved me. Yi Xian was stunned. In fact, he had already guessed it. Yi Xian was silent. He understood why didn't respond at that time, and he also understood why only saved Dao Ling afterwards. Yi Xian walked to Dao Ling and patted his shoulder. It's good that you are back. Dao Ling nodded. After dying once, his state of mind was completely different. At this moment, the spacetime in the distance suddenly split open. The next moment, a middle-aged man walked out slowly. Yi Xian looked at the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man looked at Yi Xian and the rest. Finally, his eyes fell on Tian Qi. When he saw Tian Qi, he squinted his eyes. It's really you. Tian Qi looked at the middle-aged man and did not speak. The middle-aged man stared at Tian Qi. Return to the clan with me. Return to the clan? Yi Xian frowned. Was this a clansman of Tian Qi? From afar, Tian Qi ignored the middle-aged man because he did not know him. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly said, You are a clansman of Tian Qi? The middle-aged man glanced at Yi Xian. Who are you? Yi Xian said, I am Heaven-Forsaken's friend. Friends. The middle-aged man narrowed his eyes. You said you're his friend? Yi Xian nodded. Is there a problem? The middle-aged man laughed and said, No problem, haha. Yi Xian frowned. Are you here to receive Tianqi back to the clan? Return to the clan. The middle-aged man stared blankly for a moment before bursting into laughter. You're right. I'm here to bring him back to the clan. Yi Xian shook his head. He can't go back with you. The middle-aged man looked at Yi Xian. Why? Yi Xian said indifferently, your killing intent is almost written on your face. The middle-aged man stared at Yi Xian and said with a smile, interesting. Young man, do you know who is in front of you? Yi Xian shook his head, I don't know. The middle-aged man smiled and asked, have you heard of the Fei Sky tribe? Yi Xian fell silent. Obviously, Tianqi was from the Fei Sky tribe. The middle-aged man laughed, looks like you haven't. But that's normal. How could someone like you have heard of the Fei Sky tribe? As soon as he finished speaking, he looked at Tianqi. In the next moment, he suddenly clenched his right fist and punched at Tianqi. A wisp of viciousness flashed through Tianqi's eyes. He was just about to attack when a ray of sword light slashed towards the middle-aged man. Yi Xian had attacked. At this moment, he'd actually attained the time control realm. Bang! As an expanse of sword light erupted, the middle-aged man was blasted over 10 kilometers back. As soon as he stopped moving, his body actually split apart. He was at the time control realm as well. Besides the Yang clan, there were no other powers that could deal with experts at the time immortal level like cabbages. The middle-aged man felt disbelief as he gazed at Yi Xian. Yi Xian's expression was calm. Fuck off. The middle-aged man revealed a ferocious expression, how presumptuous. How dare you speak to me like that? You. Yi Xian suddenly vanished on the spot. The middle-aged man's pupils constricted as he raised his arms to block Yi Xian's attack. Bang! An expanse of sword light exploded apart as the middle-aged man's body was blasted apart. After that, a sword pierced through the center of his forehead. Bang! In an instant, the middle-aged man's soul was completely absorbed. Shi Tian spoke in a low voice, Brother Yi, looks like Tianqi's clan isn't very friendly to him. Yi Xian nodded, I can see that. Shi Tian spoke in a low voice, Brother Yi, we're probably going to have new trouble. Yi Xian turned around to gaze at Tianqi, do you remember what happened in the clan? Tianqi shook his head. Yi Xian fell silent for a short moment before he said, cultivate. Our target is the time immortal. The time immortal. Shi Tian and the others nodded. In the previous battle, along with Elder June and the others' guidance, they had gained quite a bit. Even now, they still hadn't completely absorbed it. Everyone found a quiet starry sky and cultivated on their own. In the starry sky, Yi Xian looked at the two spatial rings in his hand. One of them contained an immortal meridian treasure. He glanced at it and saw that there were over 4 million immortal meridians. Was it a lot? Actually, it was a lot. This was the entire wealth of an ancient faction. It was unknown how many tens of thousands of years they had saved up to have so many immortal meridians, 4 million immortal meridians, plus the ones east, south, and east had given him. He now had 7 million immortal meridians. It had to be said that this was a huge amount of wealth. In the other spatial ring, there was only a scroll. Yi Xian opened the scroll. The scroll suddenly turned into a sword light and entered the center of his forehead. Bang! Yi Xian's body violently shook as countless pieces of information surged into his mind. Slash the void. If this sword skill is successfully cultivated, it can break through time, it can break through reincarnation, it can break through everything. There was only a simple line of explanation. Yi Xian knew that his father had probably left this for him. Slash the void. Yi Xian slowly closed his eyes. After a long time, he opened his palm and a sword condensed in his hand. What was the void? The void was an absolute existence that transcended spacetime and didn't have any meaning or attribute outside of the beginning of the universe. The void was the source of all things in the universe, the final destination of all things. Time was the void. Reincarnation was the void. Fate was the void. A sword slashed the void, slashing the essence of all things in the universe. In the battlefield, Yi Xian slightly closed his eyes and the sword in his hand trembled slightly. 3 days later, Yi Xian suddenly opened his eyes and slashed with his sword. Chi! With this slash, the river of time in front of him was directly torn apart. Not only that, but he was shocked to find that the power of time directly turned into nothingness when it touched his sword. The bane of the power of time? Yi Xian was stunned. Moreover, Yi Xian noticed that there seemed to be some other power that had been destroyed by his sword as well. However, he didn't know what exactly it was. According to his guess, it should be a power that surpassed the power of time. Meanwhile, Dao Ling appeared by Yi Xian's side. At this moment, his body had completely recovered. Dao Ling smiled, "Your strength has improved again." Yi Xian nodded. Even though he wasn't a time immortal yet, he didn't feel any pressure when facing a time immortal with the sword technique his father had left him. After all, he'd fused with the river of time and had a sword technique that specifically countered the power of time. So, a time immortal couldn't pose a threat to him. However, a powerhouse at the level of Old June was still a great threat to him. Reincarnation Walker. Yi Xian fell into deep thought. Meanwhile, Dao Ling suddenly said, "What do you plan to do next?" Yi Xian looked at Dao Ling, "What about all of you?" Dao Ling fell silent for a moment before he said, "We want to give it a try." Give it a try. After coming out, they realized that the universe was really big and they were very small. If they stayed in the same place and didn't go out to explore, then their achievements would probably stop at the time immortal level. And their goal was not just to become a time immortal. Yi Xian looked at Shitian and Jun Xie who were walking towards them from afar. Both of them nodded slightly. Obviously, everyone wanted to go out and explore. Yi Xian suddenly said, "Do you know the owner of the Great Path's fate in the Immortal Mausoleum?" Jun Xie said in a deep voice, "I know Dao Yi a little bit." Everyone looked at Jun Xie. Jun Xie said in a deep voice, "His name is Xian Feng, the most monstrous genius in the history of the Immortal Mausoleum. His current realm should be the Time Immortal." During the previous battle, several super experts from the Immortal Mausoleum escorted him out. After saying that, he paused for a moment and continued, "He should come to find us." Dao Ling smiled, "Then let's wait for him." Shitian suddenly said, "We still have to face another problem, Heaven's abandonment. Heaven's abandonment." They looked at Heaven's abandonment. That middle-aged man's attitude had already let them know that the heavenly demon tribe had deep enmity towards Heaven's abandonment. Yi Xian walked in front of Heaven's abandonment. He looked at Heaven's abandonment. "Do you want to go back to your family?" Heaven's abandonment was silent. Yi Xian smiled, "If you want to go back, we can accompany you." Heaven's abandonment was silent for a long time. He said, "Father wants me to go back." Yi Xian asked, "Did he say what he wants you to do?" Heaven's abandonment shook his head, "He wants me to become very, very powerful before going back." Hearing this, Yi Xian and the others looked at each other. It was obvious that Heaven's abandonment of the heavenly demon tribe was not a normal departure. There was probably a grudge between them. Shitian looked at Yi Xian, "Then don't go back for now." Yi Xian nodded, "Then don't go back for now. When we become time immortals, we will go back with you. If you have relatives there, you can meet them. If the heavenly demon tribe can't accept you, then you can come with us. We brothers will take you to roam around." Heaven's abandonment nodded, "All right." Yi Xian smiled. When he was about to speak, he suddenly turned his head and looked into the depths of the starry sky. In the depths of the distant starry sky, a terrifying aura swept over. Time Immortal. Yi Xian frowned. At this time, the spacetime in front of Yi Xian's group was torn apart. Then, an old man slowly walked out. After the old man walked out, his eyes fell on Heaven's abandonment. When he saw Heaven's abandonment, his eyes flashed with savagery, "It's really you, you bastard." Then, he turned to Yi Xian, "You killed a monster of my heavenly demon tribe." Yi Xian nodded. The old man squinted. Then are you prepared to be slaughtered? Yi Xian. Chapter 2271. Slaughter the entire clan. Dao Ling and the others had strange expressions on their faces. They might have a chance to slaughter Yi Xian, but to slaughter Yi Xian's entire clan. This level of difficulty didn't seem to be ordinary. Yi Xian wasn't angry. He was slightly curious. Logically speaking, your heavenly demon tribe should attach great importance to such a monstrous genius like Tianqi. Why do you treat him like an enemy? The old man chuckled. Does that have anything to do with you? Yi Xian nodded. Of course. Because he's my friend. Friend. The old man laughed with ridicule and said, You're really interesting. You actually became friends with a bastard. Yi Xian frowned slightly. Why do you sound so superior? The old man stared at Yi Xian. Because I never thought that you were qualified to talk to me. Yi Xian shook his head. Brothers, kill him. As soon as he finished speaking, he charged forward. Hiss. A blood-red ray of light tore through the sky. At the instant that Yi Xian vanished, Dao Ling and the others charged forward as well. They attacked together. A wisp of disdain arose on the corners of the old man's mouth when he saw Yi Xian and the others attack. You're not even a time immortal, yet you dare. At this point, he seemed to have noticed something, and his pupils constricted. The disdain in his eyes instantly vanished and was replaced by seriousness. He didn't dare act carelessly again. He suddenly leaped up and slapped his palm down. Rumble. A strand of terrifying energy swept out from his palm. In an instant, the entire starry sky was obliterated. Bang! Yi Xian and the others were blasted back while the old man was pushed back repeatedly. When the old man stopped, he looked up at Yi Xian and the others, and his eyes were filled with disbelief. You. He hadn't expected that these 5 people would be so terrifying even though they weren't time immortals. They were simply monstrous. Yi Xian suddenly said, Kill. As soon as he finished speaking, he vanished on the spot. Hiss. A ray of sword light suddenly slashed in front of the old man. The old man's eyes narrowed slightly while a hint of ruthlessness flashed through them. In the next moment, he charged forward and blasted his fist forward. Rumble. With this punch, a terrifying power of time suddenly swept out from his fist. At this moment, Yi Xian, who was in the lead, slowly closed his eyes. Cleave the void. As soon as he finished speaking, a sword howl suddenly resounded. Chi. The moment Yi Xian swung his sword, the old man's pupils suddenly shrank to the size of needles, and a sense of panic suddenly spread from the depths of his heart. Danger. This was what he was feeling at the moment. At this moment, it was too late for him to stop. Rumble. An explosion suddenly resounded, and then the terrifying energy of time in front of the old man exploded apart. A moment later, the old man was blasted over 100 kilometers away. As soon as he stopped, his body exploded, and a sword suddenly pierced through the space between his eyebrows. Boom! Under the astonished gazes of Dao Ling and the others, the old man's soul became illusory. At this moment, all of them were stunned. Including Yi Xian himself. Because this was the first time he'd executed the Void, and he hadn't expected that it would be so terrifying. What the hell? Even a time immortal wasn't able to block this sword? In the distance, the old man whose soul was gradually disappearing looked at Yi Xian in the distance, his face full of disbelief. What is this? Yi Xian glanced at the old man. The Void. It can destroy everything in the world. The old man's voice trembled. How is that possible? Yi Xian's expression was calm. Have a safe journey. As soon as he finished speaking, he opened his palm, and a ray of sword light flew out from it. In the next moment, the old man's soul was obliterated. It was gone. Next to him, Dao Ling and others were looking at Yi Xian. Yi Xian blinked. Why are all of you looking at me? Dao Ling stared at Yi Xian. That attack just now, what was it? Yi Xian smiled, slash the void. Dao Ling frowned, I don't think I've seen you execute it before. Yi Xian smiled, I just comprehended it. After saying that, he turned and left. At the side, Jun Xia said softly, so powerful. Dao Ling looked at Jun Xia, you believe him? Jun Xia nodded honestly, of course. Dao Ling shook his head, you are too young. Jun Xia, on the other side, Yi Xian was very excited at this moment. He didn't expect the power of slash the void to be so terrifying. It could instantly kill a time immortal? How terrifying. Yi Xian slowly closed his eyes, and he began to study slash the void. Previously, he had only learned slash the void, but he didn't study it in depth. Therefore, his mastery of this sword was not high. But now, after witnessing the terror of this sword, he decided to study it in depth, and unleash the power of this sword to the fullest. Dao Ling and the others were also training crazily. Seeing Yi Xian kill a time immortal with one sword attack, they had to admit that they were a little shocked. Although they were good brothers, they still had the heart to be stronger. Training. Immortal Mausoleum. The Immortal Mausoleum was now in ruins, and almost all the experts inside had been killed. The once prosperous Immortal Mausoleum now looked extremely desolate. A young man stood in front of the Immortal Mausoleum, and he looked into the distance, not saying a word. Behind the young man stood an old man. At this moment, the old man suddenly said softly, Xian Feng, we should go. Xian Feng. This person was the most monstrous genius in the history of the Immortal Mausoleum, and also a person who possessed the fate of the great Tao. Xian Feng looked into the distance, not saying a word. The old man looked around warily, and then said, we really should go. Xian Feng suddenly said, did you find out about the Yang clan? The old man shook his head and was slightly helpless. No. That power seemed to have appeared out of thin air, and there's no information about it at all. All I know is that Yi Xian is the young master of the Yang clan. He hesitated for a moment as he spoke, and then he said, I've investigated the ins and outs of the matter. Sage Shu and the others wanted to get on your good side, so they went to look for Yi Xian's group on their own. They intended to kill them and seize the fate of the great Tao for you. But I never expected the outcome to be like this. Xian Feng's face instantly turned cold when he heard this. The old man sighed softly. They did it out of good intentions. Of course, it's meaningless to talk about all of that now. As he spoke, he gazed at Xian Feng. Xian Feng, I know you want to take revenge, but the strength of this clan is extraordinary. It's impossible for you to resist them with your current strength. What you need to do now is to hide yourself and wait for the right opportunity to deal them a lethal blow. Xian Feng remained expressionless. There's no need to wait for the future. The opportunity is now. The old man frowned slightly. What do you mean? Xian Feng's expression was icy cold. I don't know what the Yang clan is, but I know who that young man by Yi Xian's side is. He's probably the most outstanding genius of the heavenly demon clan, Tian Yao. He was born with the bloodline of the demon god, but his bloodline was stripped away for some unknown reason. Since then, he's vanished completely from the heavenly demon clan. Yet now, he's actually reappeared, and he's even by Yi Xian's side. Do you think the heavenly demon clan will let Yi Xian go? As he spoke, he slowly closed his eyes. Let them fight to the death. As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and left. Not long after they left, an old man and a middle-aged man suddenly appeared here. The old man was Elder Jun. The middle-aged man glanced at Elder Jun and said, Elder Jun, why didn't you allow me to kill him and eliminate future troubles? Elder Jun chuckled, do you think he can threaten the young master? The middle-aged man shook his head, I just think that we should eliminate him by the roots. Elder Jun spoke softly, don't worry. He can't win against the young master. The middle-aged man nodded slightly, right, who would dare to touch the young master while the Yang clan is around? He. Elder Jun suddenly said, do you think that the young master's greatest backer is the Yang clan? The middle-aged man gazed at Elder June, and Elder June spoke softly, the young master's greatest backer is that woman. The Wildlands Divine Clan. The patriarch of the Wildlands Divine Clan, Man Ming, was in closed-door cultivation. He was a reincarnator now, and his objective was to surpass samsara and attain the destiny realm. What was destiny? To escape from destiny and be free from Dedeabi's interference and transcend everything. It was extremely difficult to accomplish that. How many people dared to say that they were free from Dedeabi's control now? Dedeabi was like a blade that hung over the heads of all cultivators. Because no one knew when this blade would descend, and then it would be gone without them even realizing it. How difficult was it to escape the invisible control of destiny? He'd thought that he would never be able to improve any further in his lifetime, but he hadn't imagined that an enormous fortuitous encounter would suddenly fall into his lap. An inheritance. Every time he thought of this, Man Ming couldn't help but laugh loudly. What a lucky bastard. One day, an old man suddenly strode to the room where Man Ming was in closed-door cultivation. He bowed slightly. Patriarch. A moment later, Man Ming's displeased voice came from the room. Didn't I tell you not to disturb me no matter what? The old man hurriedly said, it's about young Master Yi. Crack. The door suddenly opened, and Man Ming walked out. He looked at the old man in front of him. What's wrong with young Master Yi? The old man said in a low voice, Patriarch, I received news that the Monster Sky Clan wants to target young Master Yi. Man Ming frowned. Target young Master Yi? The old man nodded. Yes. I heard that their abandoned son is with young Master Yi. You know about the monster god's bloodline, and now, the young man who was abandoned by the Heavenly Monster Clan has become young Master Yi's good brother. But the Heavenly Monster Clan can't tolerate him. Man Ming said in a low voice, they want to target young Master Yi? The old man nodded. That's the news I received. Moreover, there are demons in their clan who want to destroy young Master Yi's entire clan, Yang clan. Man Ming was stunned. Then, he said softly, how much wine did they drink? If they had even a single peanut, they wouldn't have ended up like this. P.S. School ends today. Go home and write properly. Then, explode. Chapter 2272. Yi Xian stood quietly in space with the primordial celestial sword in his hand. Cultivate. Needless to say, without the small pagoda, it was quite strenuous to cultivate, and it made him miss the small pagoda. I wonder how Xiao Ta is doing in the Milky Way. Right now, little pagoda was probably floating high up in the sky, right? Will this guy ask me to call him Pagoda Master the next time I see him? And little Soul and Enlancio. Of course, there's Qing. I haven't seen her for a long time. What is she doing now? Yi Xian opened his eyes and looked into the depths of the starry sky. At this moment, he seemed to see a plain dress. At that moment, an expert's aura interrupted Yi Xian's thoughts. He turned around and saw an old man standing in the distance. The aura of a demon beast. The Fey Sky Clan. Yi Xian looked away and said calmly, you guys are fast. The old man stared at Yi Xian. I want to see him. Yi Xian shook his head. There's no need. Then, he gripped the primordial celestial sword in his left hand and was about to attack. At that moment, the old man suddenly said, I just want to see him. I mean him no harm. Yi Xian looked at the old man and said nothing. The old man said, I'm his third uncle. His biological uncle. After a moment of silence, Yi Xian turned around. Not far away, Dao Ling and the others were walking over with Tian Qi. When the old man saw Tian Qi, he was stunned at first, then his expression darkened. You can still grow to this level without the Fey God bloodline. Tian Qi looked at the old man and said nothing. The old man suddenly looked at Yi Xian. Take him away. The further the better. With that, he turned around and left. Yi Xian suddenly said, I'm curious about something. Logically speaking, the Fei Sky clan should be happy that Tian Qi is such a monster, shouldn't they? The elder nodded. We should be happy. Back then, the entire Fei Sky clan was indeed very happy. When he spoke up to hear, he seemed to have thought of something from the past, and he sighed in a low voice while his expression was extremely complicated. Yi Xian asked in a deep voice, what happened after that? The old man shook his head, young man, knowing this won't do you any good. Listen to me, take him away now, the further the better. Yi Xian looked at the old man. Originally, Tian Qi had the bloodline of a demon god, but now it's gone. This meant that his demon god bloodline had been snatched away by someone. When your people came to look for him, they called him a bastard. If I'm not wrong, Tianqi's mother's position in the Demon Sky clan was too low. That's why no one could protect Tianqi after he was born. That's why his demon god bloodline was stolen, right? Hearing this, the old man turned around and looked at Yi Xian in shock. Seeing the old man's expression, Yi Xian's face darkened. It was obvious that he had guessed correctly. The old man sighed softly, young man, as you said, Tian Qi's mother was just a lowly servant in the Demon Sky clan. It was because of a coincidence. At this point, he shook his head slightly. Back then, when Tian Qi was born, the entire Demon Sky clan was shocked. However, not long after, his bloodline was taken away. As you said, his mother was too weak to protect him. Yi Xian said in a deep voice, Tian Qi should have a brother. His brother's mother was very powerful in the Demon Sky clan, right? The old man nodded. He glanced at Yi Xian in shock. This young man could actually guess the events of the past so accurately. How terrifying. Yi Xian was a little confused. What about Tian Qi's father? Did he just stand by and watch? The old man smiled bitterly. He couldn't do anything. Yi Xian looked at the old man. The reason why the Demon Sky clan didn't do anything. The old man sighed softly. He couldn't. Back then, the authority of the Demon Sky clan was in his hands. He represented the Demon Sky clan. How could he do anything? Yi Xian nodded slightly. I got it. The old man glanced at Yi Xian and said, young man, you aren't an ordinary person. However, the strength of the Demon Sky clan isn't something you can imagine. It might not be too late to take him away now. Yi Xian shook his head. It's too late. They know that Tian Qi is still alive, so they will kill him. The old man fell silent. Yi Xian turned to look at Tian Qi, who was still eating meat, and then he said softly, one last question. Is Tian Qi's mother still alive? The old man nodded. Tian Qi's body suddenly froze when he heard this. He was simple-minded, but he wasn't stupid. Yi Xian turned to look at the old man. Still alive? The old man nodded. Yi Xian remained silent for a long time before he said, you can leave. The old man glanced deeply at Yi Xian, and then he turned and left. After the old man left, Yi Xian and the others gazed at Tian Qi. Tian Qi remained silent for a long time before he looked at Yi Xian and said, I want to go back and take a look. Yi Xian nodded slightly. I'll go with you. Tian Qi shook his head. It's dangerous. Obviously, he understood the attitude of the Demon Sky clan towards him. Yi Xian smiled. Are you going to go back by yourself? Tian Qi hesitated for a moment and said, I'll sneak back. Yi Xian shook his head. No. As he spoke, he walked over to Tian Qi and said, 3 days. I'll go with you in 3 days. Is that all right? His void slash was still lacking a little. Thus, he wanted to cultivate a little more. Dao Ling and the others needed some time as well. Tian Qi nodded. All right. Yi Xian nodded. All of them continued cultivating. 2 hours later. In an unknown part of the starry sky, Tianqi stood silently and looked into the distance. No one knew what he was thinking. Just like that, after around an hour, Tianqi turned and left. He chose to go back by himself because he didn't want to implicate Yi Xian and the others. Right at this moment, a voice sounded out from the side. "Are we going back just like that?" Tianqi was stunned. He turned and looked over. Yi Xian and the others were standing nearby. Tianqi fell silent. Yi Xian walked over to Tianqi. "If we go back like that, we'll be sending ourselves to death. Do you know that?" Tianqi didn't speak. Yi Xian said, "Do you trust me?" Tianqi was about to nod when he seemed to have thought of something and suddenly looked at Dao Ling. Dao Ling's eyelids twitched. "Fuck. Tianqi, why are you looking at me? I didn't say anything bad about Brother Yi." Yi Xian looked at Dao Ling. "He didn't say anything bad about me." Dao Ling's expression froze. Yi Xian looked at Dao Ling. "What the F***ck? Do you always say bad things about me behind my back?" Dao Ling hurriedly shook his head. "No. I really don't," Tianqi suddenly said. "He said not to trust your words. You always trick people." Dao Ling, Yi Xian, at the side, Shitian and Jun Xia couldn't help but laugh out loud. After interacting with Yi Xian, they had to admit that Yi Xian was indeed too flashy. Moreover, he especially liked to trick people. This Brother Yi was really deadly when it came to tricking people. Yi Xian glared at Dao Ling and then turned to look at Tianqi. "Do you trust me?" Tianqi nodded. "I do." Yi Xian nodded slightly. "Then listen to me. If I say I'll bring you back, I'll definitely bring you back." Tianqi nodded. "All right." Yi Xian suddenly turned to look at Dao Ling and the other two. Dao Ling smiled. "Tianqi's matter is my matter." Shitian nodded. "Me too." Yi Xian looked at Jun Xia. Jun Xia smiled. "Count me in." Yi Xian nodded. "All right." As he spoke, he opened his palm. The Shantian token suddenly shot up into the sky. Soon, the masked elder appeared on the scene. The masked elder looked at Yi Xian. "Young Master Yi." He already knew about the Immortal Mausoleum. He had to admit that he was still shocked. That terrifying Immortal Mausoleum was gone just like that. It turned out that this young Master Yi wasn't bragging. He was really awesome. Yi Xian suddenly said, "I want to know about the Fey Sky Clan." The masked elder nodded. "All right." As he spoke, he turned and left. This time, he didn't say any nonsense. It didn't take long for the masked elder to appear in front of Yi Xian again. He opened his palm, and a scroll appeared before Yi Xian. Yi Xian took the scroll and said, "Thank you." The masked elder said, "Young Master Yi, you're too kind." Yi Xian smiled. "You can leave now." The masked elder nodded, and then he turned around and left. Yi Xian opened the scroll in his hand. After a short while, he said softly, "The Fey Sky Clan." Shitian spoke in a low voice, "What's wrong?" Yi Xian put the scroll away and smiled. "Nothing." Shitian fell silent. It was obvious that the Fey Sky Clan wasn't that simple. Suddenly, space split open in the depths of the starry sky, and then numerous terrifying auras swept over. Time Immortal. Shitian and the others frowned when they saw this. Obviously, the experts of the Fey Sky Clan had come again. Yi Xian's expression was calm, and he didn't seem angry at all. Soon, 3 old men appeared in front of Yi Xian and the others. All 3 of them were at the Time Immortal realm. The leader was an old man in a gray robe. When he appeared, his eyes fell on Tianqi. When he saw Tianqi, a trace of complicated emotions flashed in his eyes. When Tianqi was born, he had shocked the entire Demon Sky Clan. That was because the Demon Sky clan had struggled their entire lives to awaken the demon god bloodline that had been sealed for a long time. And the moment Tian Qi was born, the demon god bloodline in his body had already been awakened. At that time, the entire Fei Sky clan was shocked. Tian Qi looked at the three old men. He smelled a familiar aura from them. It was the aura of his own kind. However, he didn't have a good impression of them. At this time, the old man turned to look at Yi Xian. You killed the people of the Fei Sky clan? Yi Xian nodded. The old man looked at Yi Xian. You dare to take responsibility for your actions. You're a man. In that case, are you ready for the revenge of the Fei Sky clan? Yi Xian suddenly disappeared on the spot. In the distance, the old man's eyes narrowed, and he punched with his right hand. Chi! A ray of sword light suddenly tore the old man's fist apart and pierced his throat. At this time, Yi Xian appeared behind the old man. Revenge? What revenge? Behind the old man, Yi Xian sheathed his sword and said calmly, Sir, the wind was strong just now, and I didn't hear you clearly. Can you say it again? The old man. Chapter 2273. Instant kill. It had to be said that the old man was completely dumbfounded. He had never thought that he would be instantly killed by a sword. In that instant just now, all his time power seemed to be like snow in boiling oil, instantly disintegrating and vanishing. Because of that, he had been killed before he could even react. He had never thought that his time power would be so weak in front of this person. He had underestimated him. At this moment, the elder's heart could be said to be extremely shocked. Just who was this young man in front of him? Why was his strength so terrifying? On the other side, the two-time immortals were also completely dumbfounded. They had never thought that a time immortal would be instantly killed. This was ridiculous. Both of them had thoughts of retreating. The old man in front of Yi Xian looked at him in disbelief. You. Reincarnation walker? Yi Xian shook his head. Don't use my cultivation level to measure me. That is an insult to me. I don't cultivate. Thank you. After saying that, he slashed with his sword. Chi. The old man's soul was directly erased. Yi Xian turned to the remaining two-time immortals and said calmly, I won't kill you. Go back and tell your patriarch that there is no need to send anyone. We will come and find you immediately. The two-time immortals did not even dare to say anything. They turned and disappeared into the starry sky. Saying such harsh words at this time, wasn't that like entering the toilet with a lantern? After the two-time immortals left, Dao Ling suddenly said, Brother Yi, are we going to the Fei Sky tribe now? Yi Xian rolled his eyes at Dao Ling, haven't you suffered enough? If we go now, are we going to get beaten up? Although he could instantly kill time immortals, the problem was that the Fei Sky tribe had super experts who were even stronger than time immortals. If they went now, not only would they be bullied, but they would also be beaten up. Their heads would be smashed. They could not do such a stupid thing. They had to grow up wretchedly. Dao Ling was stunned. Then he said, Then you said you would go and find them immediately. Yi Xian said calmly, I tricked them. After saying that, he turned and left. Dao Ling was silent for a moment. Then he said, You were too careless. Yi Xian brought Dao Ling and the others into the river of time. His goal was to help Dao Ling and the others become time immortals. With the help of Elder Jun and the others, Dao Ling and the others only needed a bit more time to reach the time immortal level. As for cultivation resources, he had enough for now. While Dao Ling and the others were cultivating, Yi Xian brought Tian Qi to the Celestial Treasure Pavilion. Seeing Yi Xian, the masked old man smiled, Young Master Yi. Yi Xian glanced at the masked old man and said with a smile, I'm not used to you being so polite to me now. Why don't you treat me coldly? The masked old man was a little embarrassed. Yi Xian smiled and went straight to the point, I just came here to buy something from the Celestial Treasure Pavilion. The masked old man hurriedly said, what is it? Yi Xian thought for a moment, then took out a list and handed it to the masked old man. The masked old man glanced at it and soon frowned. Yi Xian said, what's wrong? The old man said in a deep voice, young Master Yi, the things you need are extremely precious. The price, Yi Xian smiled, don't worry about the money. Just give me the things and give me a discount. The old man smiled, all right. Young Master Yi, please wait for a moment. Then, he turned around and left. Tianqi looked at Yi Xian and hesitated for a moment, then said, are you here to buy meat? Yi Xian's expression froze. Buy meat? Yi Xian was completely speechless. This guy was really a glutton. Yi Xian looked at Tianqi and said seriously, you know your background now. Am I right? Tianqi nodded. Yi Xian said softly, you still have a mother in the Fei Sky clan. She might not be in a good situation now. The Fei Sky clan will not let you go. Under such circumstances, you must be strong, understand? Tianqi nodded. Yi Xian smiled slightly, there are some things that we can help you with because you are our brother. However, there are some things that you need to do yourself. Your big brother has been a second generation for so many years, and I've comprehended a principle, and that is to kill your own enemies. Just now, I instantly killed that time Immortal. Wasn't it very cool? Tianqi nodded obediently. Yi Xian roared with laughter, do you want to become that strong? Tianqi hesitated for a moment and said, yes. Eating meat and growing your body will make you stronger. Yi Xian smiled, that was in the past. Follow me now, and I'll let you experience the power of money. Tianqi, soon, the masked old man appeared before Yi Xian and Tianqi, and he took out a spatial ring and handed it to Yi Xian. Within the spatial ring were all the treasures that Yi Xian needed. Yi Xian smiled, how many universe veins? The masked old man hesitated for a moment, and then he said, it originally required 1,200,000 universe veins, but young Master Yi is an extraordinary VIP of my Immortal Treasure Pavilion, so you can enjoy a discount. After the discount, it will be 800,000 universe veins, 800,000 universe veins. Yi Xian didn't waste his breath, and he just tapped with his finger, causing a spatial ring to descend in front of the masked old man. The masked old man didn't even glance at it before putting it away. Yi Xian smiled, aren't you afraid that I'll give you less? The masked old man grinned, I trust young Master Ye's character. Yi Xian burst out laughing. He had finally become a man of character. He didn't say anything else, and he just left with Tianqi. Yi Xian brought Tianqi to an expanse of starry sky. He opened his palm, and a scroll appeared within it. He pressed his fingers together, and the scroll entered the space between Tianqi's brows. Bang! In an instant, countless pieces of information surged into Tianqi's mind. This was the cultivation technique that Dong Linan and the others had left for Tianqi. It specialized in cultivating the body, and it was a supreme cultivation technique within the Yang clan. Besides Yi Xian, Dong Linan had left cultivation techniques for Dao Ling and the others, and Tianqi's cultivation technique specialized in cultivating the body. As for Tianqi's cultivation technique, he didn't know if it was formidable, but it cost a terrifying amount of money. The treasures he prepared for Tianqi were only the first stage, and it required 3 stages in order to cultivate it to completion. The latter 2 stages required even more treasures and were even more precious. It was truly impossible to cultivate without money. Yi Xian sighed with emotion. He hadn't expected that money would be even more important towards the end of cultivation. Without money, no matter how amazing one's natural talent was, it was nothing. At this moment, he suddenly thought of Qin Guan. Actually, he'd suddenly noticed a terrifying problem. If he didn't use the 3 sword strikes, then Qin Guan probably had the strength to unify the universe. This woman was really too rich. If his father didn't make a move, the Yang clan might not be stronger than Qin Guan. After all, He knew that Qin Guan had a huge super fleet. Moreover, Qin Guan had 3 super trump cards, and this fleet was only one of them. She had 2 more terrifying trump cards. Who knew what her trump cards were? Yi Xian sighed in his heart. If anyone married Qin Guan, they would live off a woman until they were old. Thinking of this, Yi Xian couldn't help but chuckle. At this moment, Tianqi suddenly opened his eyes and looked at Yi Xian. I understand. Yi Xian blinked his eyes. Understand? Tianqi nodded. Yi Xian was speechless. He realized that Tianqi's cultivation was like a game to him. In terms of natural talent, Tianqi was the most amazing among the few of them. If his brain was simple, cultivation would be simple. Was his brain too complicated? Without thinking too much, Yi Xian took out the treasures he'd bought earlier and said, eat as much as you can. Tianqi didn't stand on ceremony and took a bite. Yi Xian took out a pile of veins of heaven and placed them beside Tianqi for him to absorb without limit. Gradually, Tianqi's aura started to change. His aura became stronger and stronger. Yi Xian glanced at Tianqi and retreated to the side. He had to protect Tianqi. After all, the Fei Sky clan might come to find trouble with Tianqi at any time. As if thinking of something, Yi Xian turned and looked into the distance. He activated the Xiantian token and the masked elder appeared in front of him. The masked elder bowed slightly. Young Master Yi, what can I do for you? Yi Xian said, I can share the information of Celestial Treasure Pavilion, right? The masked elder nodded. Of course. Yi Xian nodded slightly. From now on, I need to know everything about the Fei Sky clan. The masked elder hesitated for a moment and said, this. Yi Xian smiled. Is it difficult? The masked elder smiled bitterly. No, I don't have the authority. It's not that I'm declining. It's because some of the higher-level intelligence personnel don't listen to me. They only listen to the pavilion master. But don't worry. I'll report this to the pavilion master right now and ask him to authorize it. Yi Xian nodded. All right. The masked elder bowed slightly before turning and leaving. It didn't take long for Yi Xian to receive the masked elder's message. Qin Guan had authorized it. Now, he could enjoy all the information of Celestial Treasure Pavilion. He would know everything the Fei Sky clan did at the first possible moment. Just like that, time passed slowly. Tianqi's aura grew stronger and stronger. At this moment, the starry sky around him was gradually boiling. Yi Xian stood guard at the side. Not only was Tianqi's aura growing stronger, but Dao Ling and the other two's auras were growing stronger as well. They were actually showing signs of breaking through. Under normal circumstances, no matter how monstrous they were, it was impossible for them to reach the time immortal level in such a short period of time. However, with the Yang clan's help, it was completely different. Several days later. In the starry sky, Tianqi suddenly opened his eyes and clenched his right fist. Rumble. In an instant, with him as the center, the starry sky within a radius of several million zhang was directly erased. Even the time river was directly erased. On the other side, Yi Xian looked at Tianqi in shock. The power of Tianqi's punch was countless times stronger than before. Even a time immortal expert would find it hard to withstand this punch. Tianqi walked in front of Yi Xian. All right. Eat meat. With that, he stretched out his right hand. Yi Xian fell silent. He seriously suspected that the reason why this guy cultivated so quickly was because he wanted to eat meat. Chapter 2274. Yi Xian wasn't stingy, and he immediately roasted a lamb for Tianqi. Yi Xian couldn't help but smile as he watched Tianqi devour the entire lamb. Meanwhile, Tianqi seemed to have thought of something, and he suddenly tore off a leg of lamb and passed it to Yi Xian. Yi Xian didn't refuse, and he took it and started eating it. After a long time, Yi Xian clapped his hands and said, "Let me slash you. I want to see how strong your body is right now." Tianqi nodded, "All right." Yi Xian suddenly slashed his sword down on Tianqi's shoulder. Bang! The primeval divine sword shook violently, and Yi Xian was pushed back by over 1 kilometer. However, Tianqi didn't move at all. Yi Xian was first stunned by this scene, and then he was overjoyed. Because Tianqi's body was slightly stronger than he'd expected. It could be said that even though Tianqi's cultivation hadn't reached the lunar immortal realm, his body had completely attained it. Right at this moment, a figure suddenly appeared by Yi Xian's side, and it spoke softly, "Young Master Yi, the members of the Demon Sky clan will be here in around 10 minutes. This figure was an intelligence agent of the Celestial Treasure Pavilion. Yi Xian frowned slightly. "How many of them?" The figure replied, 2 rebirth practitioners and 5 time immortals. Yi Xian nodded slightly. "Can you help me deal with them?" The figure was slightly stunned, and then he hesitated for a moment before he said, "Young Master Yi, you have to get the pavilion master's permission." Yi Xian roared with laughter, "I was joking." As he spoke, he glanced at the figure. "You have to get the pavilion master's permission. What does that mean?" This meant that the other party was truly capable of killing these 7 super experts. The Celestial Treasure Pavilion is still so mysterious. The figure heaved a sigh of relief when he heard Yi Xian, "Young Master Yi, please take care." As soon as he finished speaking, he left silently. Yi Xian gazed at Tianqi. "Do you want to fight?" Tianqi nodded vigorously. Now that he had just broken through, he felt that his whole body was filled with power. He needed to vent his invincible power. Yi Xian laughed, "I'll arrange it for you right away." As soon as he finished speaking, the starry sky in the distance suddenly trembled violently. Then, 7 terrifying and powerful auras suddenly swept over. Rumble. In an instant, the entire starry sky boiled over. Yi Xian frowned slightly. Why do these experts have to make such a big commotion every time they appear? It's as if they're afraid that others don't know they've come. If it were him, he would sneak in and launch a sneak attack to kill him in one move. Wouldn't that be great? The person in the lead was an old man in a black robe. His gaze fell directly onto Tianqi, and his gaze instantly turned cold when he saw Tianqi. The black-robed old man's expression suddenly became ferocious. "That damned Skywood. He actually lied to us and said you were already dead. That damned fool." Tianqi glanced at the black-robed old man and slowly clenched his right fist. He could already feel the hostility from these people. The black-robed old man suddenly turned to look at Yi Xian. He glared at Yi Xian. "What kind of trash are you? You dare to meddle with my heavenly monster tribe's matters?" Yi Xian frowned slightly. "Idiot. Can't you be more civilized like me?" The black-robed old man's mouth suddenly curled into a ferocious smile. In the next instant, he disappeared from his spot. In the distance, Yi Xian was about to draw his sword when Tianqi suddenly appeared in front of him. He flew up and punched. Rumble. As he punched, a terrifying force poured out from his fist. In an instant, he and the old man retreated hundreds of thousands of zhang away. After stopping, the old man's eyes were filled with disbelief. "You? How could it be?" Tianqi slowly clenched his right fist. He glared at the old man, his eyes filled with malice and ferocity. The old man glared at Tianqi. "How could it be? Your body is actually that strong." Tianqi suddenly roared angrily. In the next instant, he directly rushed out. Boom! Wherever Tianqi passed, time and space exploded. A terrifying aura shook the sky. A ferocious glint flashed through the old man's eyes. He suddenly let out a furious roar, and then a 30,000-meter-tall demon beast manifestation suddenly appeared behind him. In the next moment, the demon beast roared and smashed its fist down. Rumble. With a loud explosion, Tianqi was sent flying hundreds of thousands of zhang away by this punch. After Tianqi stopped, blood trickled down the corner of his mouth. In the distance, the old man glared at Tianqi, B*****, I didn't kill you that year. Today, I'll do it again. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly soared into the sky. The demonic beast Dharma idol behind him suddenly punched. Rumble. In an instant, the entire sky was destroyed. The power of one punch was enough to destroy the world. In the distance, Yi Xian squinted his eyes. His left hand slowly gripped the sword in his hand, ready to attack. When he saw the incoming punch, Tianqi suddenly roared madly. In the next moment, he leaped up and a demonic beast Dharma idol appeared behind him. He immediately threw a punch at it. Fighting between demonic beasts was very simple. There were no tricks involved. It could be described in one word, head-on. Rumble. A deafening explosion suddenly resounded in the sky. Then, Tianqi and the old man retreated at the same time. However, in the next moment, the two demonic beasts rushed out at the same time. Soon, the entire sky was destroyed bit by bit. This was because the sky could not withstand the power of the two demonic beasts. Yi Xian and the experts of the Demon Sky clan retreated far away. They had no intention of interfering. Obviously, they wanted Tianqi to fight the old man alone. Yi Xian understood this. In the demon clan, it was shameful to fight as a group, especially when Tianqi fought the old man. It was a fight between the weak and the strong. If they still wanted to help, the old man would definitely not agree. After all, not everyone was shameless. At this thought, Yi Xian's old face reddened. In the field, the experts of the heavenly monster tribe looked incomparably stern. They were so shocked. They had never thought that Tianqi's power would be so terrifying. If they didn't know better, they would think that he still had the monster god's bloodline. Soon, the experts of the heavenly monster tribe darkened their faces. They couldn't let Tianqi live. Considering what the heavenly monster tribe had done to Tianqi in the past, Tianqi would definitely take revenge in the future. Now that Tianqi was already so monstrous, if he continued to grow, how strong would he be? Yi Xian glanced at the experts of the heavenly monster tribe. He could see the murderous intent in their eyes. Right at this moment, a loud explosion came from deep in the sky. Then, Tianqi and the old man retreated crazily. The two of them retreated for more than 100,000 zhang before stopping. After stopping, Yi Xian found that the two of them were shivering. Tianqi was in a worse state because many parts of his body were cracked. Tianqi glared at the old man in the distance, his eyes filled with endless malice. His ferocity had been revealed. The old man stared fixedly at Tianqi as well. At this moment, he was extremely shocked. He hadn't expected that this bastard's strength would be so terrifying. Tianqi suddenly roared furiously. In the next moment, he leaped up and charged at the old man. Hiss! The starry sky was torn apart. The old man's eyes narrowed slightly as he slowly clenched his right hand. A moment later, he suddenly vanished on the spot. Rumble! An explosion resounded, and then both of them retreated explosively. But in the next moment, Tianqi disregarded his injuries and charged forward once more. Ruthless! Tianqi had grown up in the primeval god and fought demon beasts every single day. Moreover, he ate demon beasts to survive. His ferocity wasn't something an ordinary person could compare to. A wisp of ferocity flashed through the old man's eyes, but he didn't retreat. He was a dignified reincarnator, so how could he retreat when facing Tianqi, who wasn't even at the time immortal realm? Rumble! A terrifying force suddenly erupted in the starry sky. Tianqi and the old man retreated once more, and the old man suddenly roared furiously. Skypiercer complete. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly stretched out his right hand and swung it down. Bang! The starry sky above Tianqi suddenly split apart, and then an enormous palm stretched out and smashed down. Bang! The starry sky and the surroundings started to burn. Tianqi suddenly raised his head, and a wisp of ferocity flashed through his eyes. A moment later, he shot into the sky and smashed his fist towards the palm. Rumble. The enormous palm suddenly exploded apart, and Tianqi fell from the starry sky. Suddenly, the old man roared furiously, "Kill him!" It was obvious that he didn't want to drag things out any longer, because he noticed that he seemed to be unable to kill Tianqi. Tianqi's terror had caused him to feel slightly terrified. When they heard the old man, the other experts of the heavenly demon race charged towards Tianqi, who was falling from the sky. Right at this moment, a wisp of ferocity flashed through Yi Xian's eyes. Who dares? As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly charged forward and slashed with his sword. Bang! In the distance, a time realm expert of the heavenly demon race was directly killed by Yi Xian's sword. Seeing this scene, the black-robed old man and the remaining experts of the heavenly demon race were shocked. Instantly killing a time immortal? The black-robed old man looked at Yi Xian. "I underestimated you." Yi Xian chuckled. "Old man, you want to gang up on me after fighting for a while? You don't have any morals." The black-robed old man glared at Yi Xian. "Do you know my heavenly demon race?" Yi Xian nodded. "I just found out." The black-robed old man snarled. "Since you know, you still dare to meddle in the internal affairs of my race. Are you tired of living?" Yi Xian thought for a moment, then smiled. "I don't care about the internal affairs of your heavenly demon race. However, Tianqi is my brother. His affairs are my affairs." At the side, Tianqi glanced at Yi Xian but didn't speak. The black-robed old man suddenly grinned fiendishly. "Brother? Young man, you don't know how high the sky is. I'm telling you. Today, you and my heavenly demon race have become enemies. Don't worry. I won't kill you right away. I will kill your entire race first. I will let them die one by one in front of you. I will let you experience the feeling of losing your family." Yi Xian thought for a while, then said, "Will you kill my father first or my sister first?" The black-robed old man grinned fiendishly. "Of course, together." Yi Xian pondered for a while, then said, "You are fiercer than Tianyi." Tianyi, P.S. Today, I have 3 chapters. I want to be arrogant. Don't call me weak. It's useless. With my current thick skin, I don't feel anything when you call me weak. Every time I see you call me weak, I don't feel anything. That's right, my skin is thick. If you have the guts, come to Jianghu and beat me." It was impossible to defeat a shameless person with words. I'm shameless. I'm shameless. No matter what, I'm shameless. 7017K. Chapter 2275. Needless to say, Yi Xian felt a headache coming on. Why did those super forces like to exterminate an entire clan? Did they make themselves look awesome when they said they would exterminate an entire clan? A truly ruthless person would never speak ruthlessly. For example, Qing could destroy the entire universe if he was displeased. Suddenly, the black-robed old man said, "Do you dare to introduce yourself?" Yi Xian glanced at the black-robed old man and said, "Yang clan. My father is Sword Master Yang Yi. He likes to wear a green robe. It's easy to recognize him." Yang clan. The black-robed old man frowned slightly because he had never heard of it. Yi Xian smiled and said, "You've never heard of it, right?" The black-robed old man glanced at Yi Xian and said, "I've never heard of it. Where is the Yang clan?" Yi Xian kept silent. Where is the Yang clan? He really didn't know. He was ashamed. He was the young master of the Yang clan, but he didn't know where the Yang clan was. It was really ridiculous. At this moment, the black-robed old man mocked. "What? You don't dare to say it?" Yi Xian said seriously, "It's not that I don't want to say it. I really don't know." The mocking smile on the black-robed old man's face widened. Do you think I'll believe you? Yi Xian was speechless. What the hell? I can't be an honest man, can I? At this moment, a middle-aged man by the black-robed old man's side said in a low voice, "This kid isn't simple. We can't underestimate him." The black-robed old man kept silent. He knew that Yi Xian wasn't simple. He was so young but had such terrifying strength. How could he be an ordinary person? After all, the higher one cultivated, the more resources they needed. Ordinary independent cultivators couldn't reach this level. Even if they could, they would be old monsters that had lived for tens of thousands of years. They had to endure and endure. But Yi Xian was too young. He wouldn't believe that such a person didn't have a powerful force behind him. Of course, he wasn't afraid. Heavenly Monster Tribe had never been afraid of anyone. Thinking of this, the black-robed old man looked at Yi Xian. "Tian Sun, you hold him back. The rest of you, kill this bastard with me." The middle-aged man by the black-robed old man's side nodded slightly. He gazed at Yi Xian and was about to attack. Suddenly, numerous powerful auras appeared here, and then Dao Ling and the others appeared here. When Yi Xian saw Dao Ling and the others, he was stunned. Because he discovered that Dao Ling and the others had all become time immortals. Time immortal. Yi Xian was incomparably shocked. He looked at Dao Ling, who was the leader, and asked in astonishment, "You all reached the time immortal stage so quickly?" Dao Ling was a little displeased. "Why? Do you think we're all idiots in your heart?" Yi Xian smiled and said, "No, I'm just a little shocked." "You guys are a little too fast," Dao Ling laughed. "I told you that you would be shocked." "Huh," Yi Xian nodded slightly. "I'm afraid I can't defeat you with one strike now. I'll need 2 strikes. Dao Ling and the others' expressions froze. Seeing Dao Ling and the others, the black-robed old man frowned slightly. "Who are you?" Dao Ling smiled. "Brothers abandoned by heaven." The black-robed old man was so angry that he laughed. "Interesting. Since when does a nobody dare to interfere with the internal affairs of my heavenly monster tribe?" Dao Ling laughed. "Old man, cut the crap. Let's fight." As he spoke, he charged towards the black-robed old man. As he charged, a terrifying force suddenly swept out of Dao Ling's body. Then, a Dharma form appeared behind Dao Ling. This Dharma form was hundreds of thousands of zhang long. It really spanned across the galaxy and was incomparably huge. Dao Ling grinned. "Old man, eat my fist." As he spoke, he punched out fiercely. Behind him, the Dharma form suddenly punched out. In an instant, the entire starry sky was destroyed. A terrifying force swept across the entire starry sky. It was extremely terrifying. Seeing the incoming punch, the black-robed old man's expression instantly turned solemn. Another monstrous genius had arrived. He didn't dare to be careless. Immediately, he leaped up. Behind him, the virtual image of the demonic beast suddenly appeared. The next moment, he roared angrily and directly charged towards Dao Ling. Rumble. In the starry sky, 2 terrifying forces collided. In an instant, an even more powerful force exploded in the starry sky. In an instant, the starry sky within a radius of millions of zhang boiled and burned. Then, it was annihilated. Yi Xian's mind flickered. A wave of sword aura directly blocked the shockwaves of the 2's forces. At this moment, Shi Tian walked to Yi Xian's side. He looked at the black-robed old man and the others in the distance. "Heavenly Monster Tribe still won't let Heaven Chi go?" Yi Xian nodded. A cold light flashed in Shi Tian's eyes, but he didn't speak. In the distance, Dao Ling and the black-robed old man fought fiercely. The black-robed old man couldn't suppress Dao Ling. Of course, Dao Ling couldn't do anything to the black-robed old man either. This was because the black-robed old man's physical body was extremely strong. Dao Ling couldn't break his defense at all. Yi Xian glanced at the 2 of them. He had a rough understanding of the reincarnated walker's strength. If it were him, he wouldn't be able to do anything to the black-robed old man if he didn't use slash into nothingness. In fact, he missed the green profound sword. If he had the green profound sword in his hand, coupled with his current slash into nothingness, he was confident that he could kill the black-robed old man with one slash. What a pity. After fighting for a while, the heavenly monster tribe's experts' faces gradually turned ugly. This was because they realized that the strength of the few people in front of them had far exceeded their expectations. At this moment, the middle-aged man in the lead, Tian Sun, suddenly said, "Call for help. Call for help." He had already analyzed the situation. With their current strength, they couldn't do anything to the few people in front of them. Moreover, he realized that these young people were a little fearless. They knew about the heavenly monster tribe, but they weren't afraid of them. It was terrifying to think about it. Hearing Tian Sun's words, an expert of the heavenly monster tribe beside him took out a token. The token flew up into the sky and was about to enter the starry sky. Suddenly, a ray of sword light slashed the token. Bang! The token was directly slashed into pieces. Tian Sun turned to look at Yi Xian. Yi Xian smiled faintly. "You want to call for help?" Tian Sun looked at Yi Xian. "What? Are you afraid?" Yi Xian shook his head. "I'm not afraid, but why should I ask you to call for help?" As he spoke, he suddenly said, "Brothers, let's beat them up." As soon as he finished speaking, he charged towards Tian Sun. Tian Sun's face instantly turned gloomy when he saw Yi Xian attack. Are all the young people nowadays so arrogant? Tian Sun didn't waste his breath and vanished on the spot. Bang! A strand of terrifying force swept through the surroundings. Pure physical strength. In the distance, Yi Xian's eyes were filled with fighting spirit. He had just broken through, so he wanted to fight to his heart's content. When Yi Xian and Tian Sun fought, Jun Xia and Shi Tian, who stood by his side, charged towards the four-time immortals. As soon as they fought, Jun Xia and Shi Tian completely suppressed the experts of the heavenly demon race. No, it should be called beating them up. They were invincible amongst their peers. Both Jun Xia and Shi Tian were monstrous geniuses amongst monstrous geniuses. Coupled with the help of old Jun and the others, ordinary time immortals weren't a match for them after they became time immortals. Seeing that his time immortal experts were being suppressed, Tian Sun, who was fighting against Yi Xian, had an ugly expression on his face. Yi Xian and the others might not be able to deal with the two samsara walkers, but the time immortal experts they had brought with them were clearly not a match for Yi Xian and the others. It wouldn't be long before these time immortals would be killed. They weren't a match for them at all. When he thought up to here, Tian Sun didn't have the heart to continue fighting. His figure shook and he retreated over 30 kilometers away. He just pulled away from Yi Xian when he immediately took out a token and crushed it. Bang! A mysterious force vanished in the depths of the boundless starry sky. Yi Xian glanced at the depths of the starry sky and fell silent. These people really don't care about martial virtue. They call for help at the slightest provocation. How shameless. Tian Sun stared coldly at Yi Xian. "You'll pay for what you've done today." Yi Xian roared with laughter. "Cut the crap. Let's fight." As soon as he finished speaking, he charged towards Tian Sun. Hiss! A strand of sword light suddenly tore through the battlefield. A wisp of viciousness flashed through Tian Sun's eyes. He suddenly charged forward and punched at Yi Xian. This punch caused the space before him to cave in and be obliterated. Rumble. Yi Xian was blasted over 30 kilometers away by this terrifying force. Tian Sun was just about to follow up with another attack when numerous strands of sword light suddenly appeared around him. Tian Sun's eyes narrowed slightly, and he suddenly swept his right hand horizontally. Rumble. Those strands of sword light were blasted into pieces. Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly appeared above Tian Sun, and then a sword slashed down. Hiss. The sky was torn apart. Tian Sun raised his head swiftly and blocked with his arms. Rumble. An expanse of sword light was blasted apart, and Tian Sun was blasted over 30 kilometers away. As soon as he stopped, Yi Xian appeared above him once more, and then he slashed down with his sword once more. Tian Sun suddenly roared furiously and stomped his right foot. Bang! Everywhere his foot landed, space collapsed and was obliterated. On the other hand, Tian Sun shot into the sky and collided with Yi Xian's terrifying sword strike. Rumble. An expanse of sword light was blasted apart in the depths of the starry sky, and then Yi Xian and Tian Sun retreated repeatedly, and they retreated for over 100 kilometers. After Tian Sun stopped, he glanced at his body. His body was densely covered in scars, and they'd even broken his skin, but his bones weren't injured. Tian Sun's face instantly turned unsightly when he saw this. He looked at Yi Xian with a vicious look in his eyes. Die. As soon as he finished speaking, he clenched his right hand and was about to attack. However, Yi Xian suddenly vanished on the spot. However, his target wasn't Tian Sun, but the black-robed old man who was fighting Dao Ling. Jun Xia and Shi Tian suddenly gave up on the time immortals and charged at the black-robed old man. In an instant, it became 5 against 1. Rumble. The black-robed old man didn't even have time to react before he was blasted away. He flew for over 100 kilometers, and as soon as he stopped, his body was blasted apart. The black-robed old man was slightly stunned. He looked at Yi Xian and the others, and his voice trembled. What the fuck is wrong with all of you? 7017K. Chapter 2276. Needless to say, he was completely stunned. He hadn't expected that Yi Xian and the others would suddenly besiege him together. It's too absurd. How can it be played like this? It wasn't just the black-robed old man, even Tian Sun and the others were bewildered. They were fighting just fine, so why had Yi Xian and the others suddenly changed targets? Yi Xian glanced at the black-robed old man and said, "Let's fight on our own." As soon as he finished speaking, he charged towards Tian Sun while Shi Tian and Jun Xia charged towards the other time immortals instead. The black-robed old man's expression instantly became unsightly when he witnessed this scene. What the hell? Meanwhile, Dao Ling spoke abruptly, "Come, let's continue." As soon as he finished speaking, he charged towards the black-robed old man. On the other hand, Tian Qi was recuperating. His injuries from the battle with the black-robed old man weren't light. The black-robed old man and Dao Ling entered into battle once more. But this time, the black-robed old man was slightly on the verge of collapse. Because he had no choice but to divert a portion of his energy to guard against Yi Xian and the others. He was really afraid that Yi Xian and the others would suddenly change targets while they were fighting. Because he was absent-minded and wasn't able to concentrate, Dao Ling was actually gradually gaining the upper hand. On the other side, Yi Xian was gradually gaining the upper hand in the battle with Tian Sun. Up until now, he still hadn't executed Sever the Void. After he broke through, he wanted to release himself. Battle was the best way to do that. Tian Sun had gradually noticed Yi Xian's intentions, but he couldn't do anything about it. Moreover, he was able to sense that Yi Xian hadn't utilized his full strength. This young man still has a trump card. At this moment, he suddenly felt slightly uneasy in his heart. Who exactly is this young man? He wasn't as arrogant as the black-robed old man and didn't think that the heavenly demon race was invincible in the entire universe. The heavenly demon race was very strong indeed, but they were definitely not invincible in the entire universe. He was worried that the heavenly demon race had bitten off more than they could chew. Rumble. Right at this moment, an expanse of sword light shattered, and Tian Sun was blasted over 10 kilometers away by a single strike from Yi Xian. Tian Sun had just stopped when a few hundred rays of sword light suddenly and mysteriously appeared around him. Sever the future. These hundreds of swords appeared in different space-time. Tian Sun's eyes narrowed slightly. He was shocked in his heart and didn't dare to be careless. He clenched his fists tightly, squatted down, and roared furiously as a terrifying force swept out from his body. Rumble. In an instant, countless sword lights were shattered and annihilated. After a short moment, the sword light dispersed and Tian Sun appeared within Yi Xian's field of vision. At this moment, Tian Sun's entire body was covered in dense sword scars, and every single one of them was extremely deep. Even though Tian Sun's physical body wasn't completely destroyed, Tian Sun's injuries were not light. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly turned to look at the black-robed old man in the distance. The black-robed old man's expression changed drastically when he noticed this. He ignored Dao Ling and turned to look at Yi Xian. He said angrily, "What are you looking at?" Yi Xian was speechless. The black-robed old man looked at Yi Xian as if Yi Xian was the person who killed his mother. Yi Xian was slightly speechless. This old man is a reincarnator realm expert at any rate. Why is he acting like a bird startled by the mere twang of a bow? Right at this moment, numerous shrill cries resounded from the side. Yi Xian turned to look and saw that Jun Xia and Shi Tian had killed a few time immortals from the heavenly demon race. The black-robed old man and Tian Sun's expressions instantly became unsightly when they witnessed this scene. "Are we going to be ganged up on now?" Yi Xian suddenly smiled and said, "Don't be nervous. We won't gang up on you." The black-robed old man instantly heaved a sigh of relief when he heard this. This young man still has some martial virtue. Right at this moment, Yi Xian suddenly smiled and said, "Of course, that's impossible." As he spoke, the three of them charged towards the black-robed old man. On the other hand, Tian Qi, who'd recovered from his injuries, was in charge of keeping Tian Sun busy. The black-robed old man's expression instantly changed violently when he saw Yi Xian and the others charge towards him. He didn't hesitate to turn around and vanish into the starry sky. Flee. He decisively chose to flee. Backbone? Dignity? Nonsense. All of that was nonsense. Survival was the most important thing. He was naturally unafraid of any one of Yi Xian's group of 5 in a one-on-one battle. But he would definitely be unable to resist a group attack. So, he decisively chose to flee. Yi Xian and the others were stunned when they saw the black-robed old man flee. The old man actually fled just like that. What the hell? As if they'd thought of something, Yi Xian and the others turned to look at Tian Sun. Tian Sun's expression changed violently, and he intended to flee. Meanwhile, Yi Xian and the others had charged over to his side. A group attack. Rumble. Rumble. In next to no time, rumbling resounded throughout the surroundings. Just like that, the battle continued for around 2 hours before the starry sky finally calmed down. At this moment, Tian Sun's body had been shattered, and his soul was dim. He wasn't completely dead, but he wasn't far from it. Tian Sun suddenly roared, "Tian Meng!" His voice was filled with endless anger and unwillingness. Tian Meng was the old man who had fled just now. Actually, if the old man hadn't fled, with their strength, they could have dealt with Yi Xian's group for a while and waited for the Heavenly Monster Tribe's experts to arrive. But he didn't expect that Tian Meng would betray his teammates. He was utterly devoid of conscience. He didn't hate Yi Xian's group because they were enemies. It was normal for them to fight to the death. However, Tian Meng betrayed his teammates. He was truly devoid of conscience. Tian Sun vanished from the scene with boundless unwillingness. Yi Xian looked into the distance and felt it was ridiculous that he didn't leave the black-robed old man alive. He knew that there weren't many reincarnated walkers in the Heavenly Monster Tribe. If he killed one, there would be one less. Unfortunately, the old man had run away. At this moment, Shi Tian walked to Yi Xian. "Brother Yi, they will come back. And the next time they come, it won't be just 1 or 2 reincarnated walkers." Yi Xian nodded. This time, the Heavenly Monster Tribe had suffered a big loss. If the other side still underestimated them, they would be too stupid. Thus, the next time the heavenly monster tribe came, it wouldn't be just one reincarnated walker. It might be a super expert who was even stronger than the reincarnated walkers. Yi Xian looked at them and then asked, "Did you get anything from the battle?" Dao Ling nodded. "Big harvest." Yi Xian smiled. "Tell me about it." Dao Ling kept silent for a while and then said, "I think the gap between them and Senior June is too big. I even suspect that they aren't real reincarnated walkers." Shi Tian nodded. "Indeed. If we had a battle with Senior June, I wouldn't have any chance of winning. No, we would be beaten up. But we could fight evenly with Tian Sun's group. We could even kill them." Then, he shook his head. "The gap isn't just big. Senior June." Yi Xian kept silent. He hadn't fought with Senior June, but he could feel his power. The gap between the reincarnated walkers of the heavenly monster tribe and Senior June's group was really big. At this moment, Dao Ling suddenly said, "Brother Yi, they came to attack us. Why didn't they investigate us first?" "Of course, Shi Tian, Jun Xia, and I have nothing to investigate. But you're different. You're the heir of the Yang tribe." Yi Xian shook his head and smiled. "The Yang tribe? Let alone outsiders, I don't know much about my own family." Dao Ling frowned. "Why?" Yi Xian said seriously, "Do you think I relied on my family to get to where I am today? I relied on my own efforts to get to where I am today. Do you understand?" Dao Ling's eyes widened. "Brother Yi, don't you blush when you talk like that?" Yi Xian was speechless. Shi Tian and Jun Xia shook their heads and smiled. They knew how thick Yi Xian's skin was. Brother Ye's skin was invincible in this world. At this moment, Dao Ling suddenly said, "No matter what, we are now against the heavenly monster tribe. They will definitely take revenge on us." Yi Xian nodded slightly. As he was about to say something, Tian Qi suddenly said, "I'm sorry. I'm sorry." Yi Xian's group looked at Tian Qi. Tian Qi lowered his head slightly. He didn't eat the meat anymore. He knew that his tribe was targeting them because of him. Dao Ling glared at Tian Qi. "What do you mean sorry? We're on the same side." "Don't say that." Tian Qi hesitated for a while and then handed the meat he had eaten to Dao Ling. Dao Ling's face darkened. "Brother, you ate this." Hearing that, Yi Xian's group burst into laughter. Dao Ling also shook his head and laughed. At this moment, Shi Tian suddenly said, "Brother Yi, how did the heavenly monster tribe know about Tian Qi's existence?" Hearing that, Yi Xian's face turned cold. "Of course, someone informed them." Shi Tian was silent for a while and said, "The one in the Immortal Mausoleum?" Yi Xian nodded. "It should be him. It seems like he wants to play dirty." Then, he shook his head slightly. "Let's not care about him first. Everyone should have gained a lot from the battle just now. Now, we can absorb what we have gained." Shi Tian nodded. "Okay." Everyone started to cultivate. Meanwhile, Yi Xian went to the Immortal Treasure Pavilion. He sat in the room while the masked elder stood respectfully beside him. The masked elder was reporting something to Yi Xian. After a while, Yi Xian said calmly, "Have they started to investigate us?" The masked elder nodded. "Yes. However, with their current strength, they shouldn't be able to investigate young Master Ye's background." Yi Xian was puzzled. "Why?" The masked elder smiled bitterly. "Because even we can't investigate young Master Ye's family. Young Master Yi, your family is very mysterious. I'm afraid only the pavilion master knows the details." Yi Xian smiled. "Let alone you guys, I don't even know myself." The masked elder nodded slightly. "So, they might continue to target young Master Ye's group." Yi Xian suddenly said, "If I tell them that the Yang tribe is very strong, will they believe me?" The masked elder shook his head. No. Yi Xian was puzzled. Why? The masked elder hesitated for a while and said, Young Master Yi, forgive me for being blunt, but you give off the impression that you are the kind of person who likes to brag. Yi Xian was speechless. P.S. There are 2 updates today. I don't dare to talk too much. Explode on the 15th. As for how much? How much do you think is appropriate? The kind that would explode to the point where they would rather eat instant noodles and vote for me. 7,017K. Chapter 2277. Yi Xian was speechless when he heard what the masked old man said. Damn it. How can this old man speak like that? What does he mean by I like to brag? The masked old man smiled and said, Young Master Yi, what do you plan to do next? Yi Xian smiled. What else can I plan to do? The masked old man was about to speak when a figure appeared beside him. The figure bowed and said, President, the ancient demon king of the Fey Sky clan is here to visit you. Ancient demon king. Yi Xian squinted his eyes. He knew that this was one of the 4 great demon kings of the Fey Sky clan. With the help of the Celestial Treasure Pavilion, he knew the overall strength of the Fey Sky clan and some information about the experts. The masked old man hesitated for a while and looked at Yi Xian. Yi Xian smiled. Let's go. I'll go with you. The masked old man nodded. Okay. The Celestial Treasure Pavilion had never been involved in any feud with the mortal world. That was because the Celestial Treasure Pavilion was a businessman. However, it didn't mean that the Celestial Treasure Pavilion didn't have a stance. Between Yi Xian and the Fey Sky clan, the Celestial Treasure Pavilion would naturally choose Yi Xian. What a joke. Not to mention the Yang clan behind Yi Xian, even Yi Xian had a special relationship with the Pavilion Master. It might be fine if the Pavilion Master didn't help Yi Xian. However, if the Pavilion Master helped someone else, Yi Xian would definitely die a horrible death. After a while, the masked old man and Yi Xian arrived at a huge hall. A middle-aged man was waiting for them in the hall. The middle-aged man was tall and wore a simple robe. He had a dignified look on his face. Ancient Demon King. One of the 4 great demon kings of the Fey Sky clan. The ancient demon king looked at Yi Xian and smiled. You must be young Master Yi. Yi Xian smiled. Ancient demon king, I've heard a lot about you. Ancient demon king was stunned and smiled. Young Master Yi knows me? Yi Xian shook his head. Not really. Ancient demon king looked at Yi Xian and smiled. Then why did you say, I've heard a lot about you? Yi Xian smiled and said, it's just polite words. Don't take it seriously. Ancient demon king was stunned and then laughed. Young Master Yi is really interesting. As he spoke, he glanced at the masked old man and smiled. Looks like the relationship between young Master Yi and the Immortal Treasure Pavilion isn't ordinary. Yi Xian smiled. I'm the same as you, sir, I'm also a guest of Celestial Treasure Pavilion. Ancient Demon King picked up the teacup in front of him and took a sip. Then, he smiled and said, Young Master Yi, I wanted to find you, but I didn't expect to meet you here. Then, I'll get straight to the point. The young man beside young Master Yi, Tianqi, is from my Devil Sky tribe. I want to take him away. Yi Xian sat at the side and drank the tea in one gulp. Then, he smiled and said, Tianqi is my brother. Ancient Demon King looked at Yi Xian and smiled. Nothing to talk about? Yi Xian smiled. Nothing to talk about. Ancient Demon King nodded and stood up to leave. When he reached the door, he suddenly smiled and said, Young Master Yi, there are many decisions in a person's life, and each decision will determine his future. Some decisions can make you successful, and some will make you doomed. Then, he turned to look at Yi Xian and smiled. Young Master Yi, take care. Then, he turned and disappeared. In the palace, Yi Xian looked at the masked old man and asked, Is he threatening me? The masked old man nodded. Obviously. Yi Xian shook his head and smiled. Kill him. As soon as he finished speaking, he dashed out. Outside the palace, there was a sword chime. In the palace, the masked old man was stunned. Is he really going to kill him? Outside Celestial Treasure Pavilion, Yi Xian forced Ancient Demon King to stop with his sword. Ancient Demon King looked at Yi Xian calmly. Yi Xian smiled and said, I don't like to threaten people. Then, he disappeared and slashed at Ancient Demon King with his sword. Ancient Demon King smiled. Since you want to die so much, I will fulfill your wish. As soon as he finished speaking, he disappeared and punched at Yi Xian. Chi. As soon as the punch was thrown out, time and space were torn apart. A dreadful force swept towards Yi Xian. Yi Xian sneered. He suddenly drew his sword and slashed. Chi. The sword light tore everything. Rumble. As the sword aura exploded, Yi Xian retreated. In the process of retreating, hundreds of sword auras suddenly engulfed the Ancient Demon King. Rumble. At this moment, a fist mark rushed out from the sword light and headed towards Yi Xian. From afar, Yi Xian moved his mind and the sword in his hand flew out. Boom! The fist mark was shattered by Yi Xian's sword. In the starry sky, Yi Xian and Ancient Demon King faced each other. Ancient Demon King looked at Yi Xian and smiled. Extraordinary indeed. Yi Xian smiled. Ancient Demon King, you are a great demon sky clan. Can't you accept the heavens' abandonment? Ancient Demon King fell silent for a while and said, if he still has the demon god's bloodline, I will protect him even if I have to risk my life. It's a pity that he no longer has the demon god's bloodline. If he is an ordinary person, I can turn a blind eye to it. It's a pity that he is not ordinary. Even without the help of his family, he could reach such a level. Then, he shook his head. I'm afraid he will hold a grudge and take revenge on our demon sky clan in the future. Yi Xian fell silent. He knew that after Tian Chi's demon god's bloodline was taken away, he was worthless to the demon sky clan. Not only was he worthless, but he was also a threat. Yi Xian shook his head. If that's the case, there's no need to say more. Let's fight. Ancient Demon King nodded. For my family, you for my brother. There's no need to say more. Let's fight. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly dashed forward and threw a punch at Yi Xian. The power of the punch was terrifying. The moment the punch was thrown, countless starlights in the starry sky were extinguished. Then, the surrounding starry sky started to collapse inch by inch. At the same time, a terrifying fist intent directly shrouded Yi Xian in the distance. Under the shroud of this fist intent, Yi Xian immediately felt an oppressive feeling as if a mountain was pressing down on him. Facing the Ancient Demon King, Yi Xian did not dare to be careless. He did not know what cultivation realm the Ancient Demon King was in. However, based on the current situation, the Ancient Demon King's strength was much stronger than the heaven-seeking demonic beast. Yi Xian closed his eyes slowly. When the fist arrived in front of him, he suddenly opened his eyes and slashed with his sword. Slash into nothingness. When he slashed with his sword, pissed. In front of Yi Xian, the terrifying fist power suddenly disappeared as though it had never appeared. The Ancient Demon King, who was in front of Yi Xian, had a drastic change in his expression. He raised his arms to block the attack. Rumble. A sword radiance suddenly exploded. Immediately after, the Ancient Demon King retreated hundreds of thousands of feet. As soon as he stopped, his arms were crushed. Not only that, but the spacetime in front of him and Yi Xian was forcefully erased. The Ancient Demon King looked at Yi Xian, who was standing with a sword in the distance. He could not believe his eyes. What sword technique is that? Yi Xian smiled. I created it myself. Slash into nothingness. The Ancient Demon King stared at Yi Xian. You did not create it yourself. Yi Xian did not understand. Why not? The ancient demon king stared at Yi Xian and did not speak. Yi Xian laughed. I did not create it. My father created it. Of course, what's the difference between what he created and what I created? What my father created is mine. What's mine is still mine. Ha! The green-shirt man was speechless. The ancient demon king looked at Yi Xian. You are such a filial son. Yi Xian smiled. Don't talk nonsense. Come on, ancient demon king. Let's fight again. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly disappeared on the spot. Chi! The sword slashed at the ancient demon king. In the distance, the ancient demon king's eyes flashed with coldness. The next moment, his body shook violently. Then, a demon beast appeared. His real body. The ancient demon king's real body was like a giant ape. He had 2 arms and 2 legs. He was 100 zhang tall. His eyes were like lanterns. His eyes were filled with evil and ferocious light. It was as if he wanted to devour the universe. It was terrifying. His real body. Apparently, he no longer had the nerve to be careless or underestimate Yi Xian's sword attack. He showed his true form right away. The ancient demon king shouted angrily and punched. Boom! The moment he punched out, the entire universe shook violently, as if there was a huge earthquake. Facing this terrifying punch, Yi Xian did not dare to be careless. He slashed with his sword. Slash into nothingness. The man and the demon beast chose to fight head-on. Boom! Suddenly, a wave of sword light erupted in the starry sky like a volcanic eruption. Then Yi Xian and the ancient demon king retreated at the same time. Yi Xian retreated hundreds of thousands of feet. As soon as he stopped, he spat out a mouthful of blood essence. The immemorial divine sword in his hand had completely cracked. Slash into nothingness was powerful. However, his sword could not withstand it. Yi Xian looked at the immemorial celestial sword in his hand and sighed. Compared to the cyan profound sword, there was still a big difference. In the distance, the ancient demon king was also badly injured. His right arm was cut off. Not only that, his whole body was cracked. Blood was flowing out. Facing Yi Xian's terrifying sword, even his strong body could not withstand it. The ancient demon king looked at Yi Xian in the distance. He was shocked. The power of Yi Xian's sword was beyond his expectation. He did not expect that he could not withstand Yi Xian's sword even after returning to his original body. One should know that his physical body had reached the reincarnation walker realm. A physical body at this level was extremely terrifying. It was almost invincible among those at the same level. But Yi Xian, who was not even a time immortal, had broken his physical body with one sword technique. This man was so terrifying. The ancient demon king stared at Yi Xian. At this moment, he felt uneasy. Yi Xian's monstrous talent was beyond his expectation. An ordinary force could not nurture such a monstrous talent. Such a monstrous talent might have a powerful force behind him. In the distance, Yi Xian wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. He looked at the ancient demon king and was about to attack again. At this moment, a message entered his mind. The next moment, Yi Xian was furious. This idiot. 7017K. Chapter 2278. Yi Xian was furious. Why? He had just received news that Tianqi had gone to the Monster Sky clan alone. Obviously, Tianqi did not want to implicate them. Yi Xian did not care about the ancient demon king. He turned and disappeared into the horizon. Not far away, the ancient demon king frowned. In the next moment, he seemed to have received some news and disappeared on the spot. In the starry sky, Yi Xian found Dao Ling, Shitian, and Jun Xie. Dao Ling said, "We did not expect him to go to the Monster Sky Clan alone." After a moment of silence, Yi Xian said, "Let's go to the Monster Sky Clan." After saying that, the brothers disappeared into the starry sky. On the way, Dao Ling's face was ugly. "Brother Yi, heaven has abandoned him." Yi Xian looked into the starry sky and said softly, "I hope we can make it in time." After saying that, the brothers suddenly sped up. Before long, they arrived at the Monster Sky Sacred Territory. The Monster Sky Sacred Territory was the lair of the Monster Sky Clan. As soon as they entered the Monster Sky Sacred Territory, Yi Xian and the others were locked on by several terrifying divine senses. The aura of a reincarnation walker. Yi Xian looked into the starry sky coldly. In the next moment, he opened his palm and the sword in his hands suddenly flew out. Pust! The sword radiance tore the sky apart and slashed into the starry sky in the distance. Boom! Suddenly, a sword radiance exploded in the distant starry sky. Then, a fist mark streaked across the starry sky and headed straight for Yi Xian and the others. A vicious glint flashed in Yi Xian's eyes. He gently pushed with his thumb. Buzz! A sword suddenly flew out from the scabbard. Rumble! The fist mark was shattered by the sword. At this moment, a middle-aged man appeared in front of Yi Xian and the others. The middle-aged man stared at Yi Xian coldly. "You are Yi Xian." Yi Xian's expression was calm. "Where is Tian Qi?" A wisp of ridicule appeared on the corners of the middle-aged man's mouth. "You can't even protect yourself, yet you still care about that bastard?" Yi Xian glared at the middle-aged man. "You keep saying that Tianqi is a bastard. Damn it. What about the Fey celestial race? Bastard? Or a son of a bitch?" The middle-aged man flew into a rage. "How dare you insult the Fey Sky Clan? You!" At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly disappeared. Boom! A wave of sword light suddenly slashed at the middle-aged man. Rumble! As the sword light shattered, the middle-aged man instantly retreated hundreds of thousands of feet. As soon as he stopped, his body split open and blood sprayed everywhere. Meanwhile, another ray of sword light slashed over. The middle-aged man's expression changed drastically. He crossed his arms in front of his chest and a terrifying force swept out from his body. Rumble! The sword light shattered, and the middle-aged man was killed. Because this sword slashed through the void. Impudent! At this moment, an angry roar suddenly rang out from the depths of the starry sky. Then, a terrifying aura swept over and enveloped Yi Xian and the others. Yi Xian's expression was calm. It was so calm that it was terrifying. An old man appeared in front of Yi Xian and the others. The old man was one of the 4 great monster kings of the Fey Sky Clan, the Wood Monster King. The Wood Monster King glared at Yi Xian. Die! As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly threw a punch. A terrifying golden fist radiance swept out like a volcanic eruption and headed straight for Yi Xian. In the distance, Yi Xian's expression was calm. When the fist radiance arrived in front of him, he suddenly slashed out with his sword. Pust! In an instant, the golden fist radiance suddenly disappeared without a trace. Slashing through the void. Seeing this, the Wood Monster King's eyes widened. "You, what kind of sword is that?" Before the Wood Monster King could finish speaking, Yi Xian suddenly slashed out with his sword. The Wood Monster King's expression changed drastically. Facing Yi Xian's terrifying sword, he did not dare to take it head-on. His body trembled and he retreated thousands of feet away. The position where he was originally standing was directly erased by Yi Xian's sword. Even the river of time could not block this slashing through the void. The Wood Monster King looked at Yi Xian with a hint of fear in his eyes. Yi Xian's face was expressionless. "Where is Tianqi?" The Wood Monster King stared at Yi Xian. "Who the hell are you?" Yi Xian suddenly said fiercely, "I asked you to answer, not ask." As soon as he finished speaking, he rushed forward and slashed out with his sword. The Wood Monster King was shocked. Because Yi Xian's speed was too fast, he could not dodge at all. Therefore, he could only take it head-on. He raised his hands and returned to his original form. A huge demonic beast appeared in the field. This huge demonic beast smashed its fist down to meet Yi Xian's sword. Rumble. An expanse of swords exploded apart, and the enormous demon beast retreated repeatedly. As he retreated, numerous sword howls suddenly resounded, and it didn't take long for a few hundred rays of light to drown the demon king beneath them. Boom! 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 Sword rays exploded around the Wood Monster King. In a few breaths, the Wood Monster King retreated hundreds of thousands of feet away. Ah! At this moment, an angry roar suddenly resounded from the sword rays. Then, a huge fist suddenly tore the sword rays apart and shook the heavens and earth. When the Wood Monster King shattered the sword rays, Dao Ling and the others discovered that there were hundreds of blood-red sword marks around the Wood Monster King's body. The Wood Monster King stared angrily at Yi Xian in the distance. His huge eyes were like lanterns. His eyes were filled with anger and murderous intent. Yi Xian suddenly rushed forward and slashed out with his sword. Slash into nothingness. The Wood Demon King's pupils constricted when it saw Yi Xian's terrifying sword strike, and it swiftly blocked with its arms. Rumble. The sword rays were shattered, and so was the Wood Monster King's body. After destroying the Wood Monster King's body, Yi Xian was about to follow up and destroy his soul. At this moment, a shadow suddenly rushed in front of him. Then, a fist with a terrifying force went straight for his head. Yi Xian turned around and slashed down with his sword. Rumble. Yi Xian was sent flying thousands of feet away by the fist. After stopping, Yi Xian looked into the distance. The person who attacked was the ancient demon king who had just returned. The ancient demon king looked at Yi Xian calmly, but he was shocked. Yi Xian's sword skill was too terrifying. Even the ancient demon king did not dare to take it head-on. The ancient demon king suppressed his shock and said in a deep voice, "Yi Xian, this is the Demon Sky Clan." His voice was filled with undisguised murderous intent and anger. Yi Xian looked at the ancient demon king and said, "Ask Tianqi to come out." The ancient demon king stared at Yi Xian and said, "What if I say no?" Yi Xian looked calm. The next moment, he suddenly disappeared. The ancient demon king's pupils shrank because Yi Xian's sword slashed into nothingness again. He did not dare to take it head-on. He immediately moved back and distanced himself from Yi Xian. Chi! As soon as he moved back, the starry sky in front of him was erased by Yi Xian's sword. The ancient demon king was fearful. Yi Xian's sword skill was too terrifying. Yi Xian closed his eyes slowly. He was trying to sense Tianqi. Soon, his face turned gloomy because he realized he could not sense Tianqi at all. Did something happen? Yi Xian could not help but frown at the thought. At this moment, the ancient demon king suddenly said, "Yi Xian." Yi Xian suddenly looked at the ancient demon king and said, "Nonsense. What nonsense are you talking to me about? I am here to fight, not to chat with you." As soon as he finished speaking, he disappeared on the spot. One sword slashed into nothingness. Seeing this, the ancient demon king's pupils shrank. He quickly retreated tens of thousands of feet away and shouted angrily, "Is that all you know?" Yi Xian looked at the ancient demon king and said, "It's none of your business." The ancient demon king stared at Yi Xian with an extremely unsightly expression. He realized that this was Yi Xian's most terrifying move. He was confident that he could defeat Yi Xian without using this sword skill. However, the problem was that once Yi Xian used this move, he would not dare to go head-on against Yi Xian even if he returned to his original form. This move was too terrifying. In the distance, Yi Xian opened his palm, and the primordial divine sword appeared in his hand. In the next moment, a terrifying force surged out from his body. He did not want to drag this on any longer. The longer he dragged this on, the more dangerous Tianqi would be. Dao Ling and the others clenched their fists and were prepared to attack. Although they were not confident in going head-on against the entire monster sky race, they did not retreat. In the distance, the ancient demon king suddenly mocked, "What? Do you want to gang up on me in my monster sky race?" As soon as he finished speaking, he clapped his hands. In the next moment, a few dozen powerful auras suddenly appeared. After that, a few dozen powerful demon beasts appeared around Yi Xian and the others. The weakest amongst them was a time immortal, and there were even 7 reincarnated travelers amongst them. Yi Xian glanced at the experts of the monster sky race and heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, there aren't many reincarnated travelers amongst the monster sky race. Right at this moment, 2 mysterious divine senses suddenly locked onto him. He quickly turned his head to look and saw 2 old men standing not too far away. Both of them wore black robes, and their hands were hidden in their wide sleeves. They were reincarnated travelers as well. Yi Xian's face instantly fell when he saw this. Right at this moment, an unknown and mysterious divine sense suddenly enveloped him. Yi Xian was shocked, and he hurriedly glanced at the surroundings. However, he didn't see the divine sense. Above the reincarnated traveler realm? Yi Xian's face fell. If it was a reincarnated traveler, then he would be able to fight and even kill that reincarnated traveler. But if it was an expert above the reincarnated traveler realm? Suddenly, all of them seemed to have noticed something, and they turned around to look. A young man was walking over slowly from not too far away. It was Tianqi. Tianqi was walking over with 2 goats on his shoulders. Yi Xian and the others were stunned when they saw Tianqi. Tianqi walked over slowly to Yi Xian, and then he placed the 2 goats in front of Yi Xian. "Big brother. Roast." Yi Xian gazed at Tianqi. "You went to look for the goats just now?" Tianqi nodded, "Yes." Yi Xian turned around to gaze at Dao Ling. Dao Ling hesitated for a moment before he said, "He left early in the morning. So, I thought he came to the monster sky race on his own because he was afraid of dragging us down." As he spoke, he smiled sheepishly and said, "I didn't expect it to be a misunderstanding, a misunderstanding." Yi Xian thought for a moment, then he turned to look at the ancient demon king and said with a smile, "Ancient demon king, it's a misunderstanding, a huge misunderstanding. We didn't come here today to fight, we came here to deliver the goats. P.S. Everyone is guessing how many chapters will be released tomorrow. I think everyone's guesses are a little off the mark. I suddenly feel a little nervous. 7017K. Chapter 2279. Here to deliver the sheep. Hearing this, the ancient demon king felt humiliated. He flew into a rage and said fiercely, "Yi Xian, do you think I am?" Before the ancient demon king could finish his sentence, Yi Xian, Dao Ling, and the others suddenly disappeared. They did not run away. Instead, they charged at the ancient demon king. Obviously, they wanted to kill the ancient demon king together. Seeing Yi Xian and the others attacking at the same time, the ancient demon king was dumbfounded. What are they trying to do? Sneak attack? That's immoral. Seeing them charging at him, the ancient demon king quickly said, "Kill them." At this moment, Yi Xian and the others were already in front of him. Yi Xian slashed with his sword. Slash into nothingness. Dao Ling and the others also attacked at the same time. Rumble. With a loud explosion, the ancient demon king was sent flying tens of thousands of zhang away. Then, his body shattered. Right at this moment, a ray of sword light suddenly slashed towards his soul. Seeing this, the ancient demon king's pupils shrank to the size of a needle. He only had one thought in his mind: it's over. At this critical moment, a mysterious power suddenly enveloped the ancient demon king. Rumble. Yi Xian's sword was blocked by the mysterious power. Yi Xian stopped and turned to look. Not far away, there was an elder in a gray robe. Seeing this person, the experts of the Devil Sky tribe hurriedly saluted. Greetings, Grand Demon King. Grand Demon King. The leader of the 4 Demon Kings, Heavenly Demon King. Yi Xian looked at the Sky Demon King, and a hint of seriousness flashed in his eyes. The old man in front of him had an aura that far surpassed that of the ancient Demon King. It was highly possible that he was an expert above the reincarnation walker realm. The Heavenly Demon King sized up Yi Xian and then turned to look at Tian Qi. When he saw Tian Qi, a complicated look flashed in his eyes. The person in front of him was the most dazzling genius of the Heavenly Demon tribe. And today, he had become the target that Heavenly Monster tribe had to eliminate. In the field, some experts of Heavenly Monster tribe were assessing Tian Qi. Some experienced experts of Heavenly Monster tribe knew Tian Qi. When he was born that year, he had shaken the entire tribe. Unfortunately, his mother was of humble birth. Tian Qi's expression was calm, but his right hand was tightly clenched. This was his former home. However, he didn't feel anything about this place at all. There was only a sense of unfamiliarity and cold hostility. At this moment, the Heavenly Demon King suddenly looked at Yi Xian and said solemnly, "You're so young, yet you have such terrifying strength. I presume you're not an ordinary person. Come, tell me about the person behind you." Yi Xian shook his head. "I don't have anyone backing me up. I relied on myself to get where I am now." Celestial Demon King looked at Yi Xian. "Do I look like a fool to you?" Yi Xian thought for a moment and said, "I have a younger sister. She's very invincible, and even Dedeabi is afraid of her." Dedeabi was speechless. Celestial Demon King looked at Yi Xian. "Invincible?" Yi Xian nodded. "Yes." Celestial Demon King's expression was calm. "How invincible?" Yi Xian hesitated for a moment. Then he said, "Invincible is a humble description." Celestial Demon King stared at Yi Xian. "Do I look like a fool to you?" Clearly, he didn't believe it. Yi Xian glanced at Celestial Demon King and smiled. "I think you do." Celestial Demon King narrowed his eyes. "I'll give you one last chance. Tell me about the person and faction behind you." Clearly, he was still afraid of the person behind Yi Xian and the faction they represented. Yi Xian said solemnly, "My younger sister is really invincible." Celestial Demon King looked at Yi Xian. "Then tell her to come. I want to see her." Yi Xian hesitated for a moment before saying, "This." Celestial Demon King sneered. "Why? Isn't she invincible? Why is she afraid of coming to my Face Sky race?" Yi Xian shook his head. "I'll tell you the truth again. Don't be angry. Your Face Sky race is too weak." She might not be interested. Hearing this, the Face Sky race powerhouses were stunned at first. Then, they laughed loudly. Celestial Demon King could not help but laugh loudly too. Yi Xian was silent. Dao Ling said solemnly, "Brother Yi, why do you sound like you're bragging when you're telling the truth? Not to mention them, even I don't believe you." Yi Xian was speechless. At this moment, Celestial Demon King suddenly laughed. "Young man, are you trying to make this old man laugh himself to death? Invincible? How many people in this world dare to say they are invincible? You said she is invincible. Aren't you afraid that her fate is not strong enough and she will be arranged by Dedeabi?" In a small room in the Milky Way, a voice suddenly sounded. "Arrange your mother." Yi Xian glanced at Celestial Demon King. "Old man, to be honest, I think Dedeabi might be arranging things for you." Celestial Demon King sneered. "I have transcended time. What can Dedeabi do to me?" Yi Xian said sternly, "How dare you look down on Dedeabi? You are too arrogant." Celestial Demon King mocked, "Only an ant like you would fear the so-called Dedeabi. Let me tell you, my fate is up to me, not the heavens. A true expert can decide his own fate. Dedeabi can only bully ants like you. In the face of a top expert, he doesn't even dare to fart." 1. Yi Xian glanced at Celestial Demon King and gave him a thumbs up. Impressive. Celestial Demon King wanted to say something, but at this moment, dark clouds suddenly covered the sky above the Phase Sky Race. Then, a bolt of lightning suddenly appeared in the dark clouds. Seeing this scene, all the Heavenly Demon Race experts were stunned. At this moment, Celestial Demon King's expression suddenly changed. Reincarnation Divine Lightning Tribulation. The old man isn't breaking through. Why did the Reincarnation Divine Lightning Tribulation appear? What the hell? Yi Xian glanced at the divine lightning that was about to condense in the sky. He knew it must be Dedeabi's doing. Celestial Demon King's words clearly angered Dedeabi. At this moment, Celestial Demon King seemed to recall something, and his pupils shrank. Dedeabi. It's Dedeabi, Dedeabi? All the Phase Sky Race experts were stunned. Dedeabi was targeting Celestial Demon King? At this moment, Celestial Demon King suddenly said fiercely, Dedeabi, the old man has no grudge against you. Why are you doing this? There was no response, but the tribulation lightning was getting stronger. Celestial Demon King's eyes flashed with fear. At this moment, he was panicking. Damn it. Actually, he was still a little fearful of the Great Way brush. The reason why he said that just now was because he wanted to act tough. But he didn't expect that Dedeabi would directly arrange for him to attack. This is too much. At the side, Yi Xian suddenly said, Celestial Demon King, are you afraid? Celestial Demon King glared at Yi Xian angrily. It's none of your business. Yi Xian said with a smile, Celestial Demon King, you just said that Dedeabi doesn't even dare to fart in front of a true expert. Why? Are you afraid now? Celestial Demon King stared at Yi Xian as if he wanted to skin Yi Xian alive. At this moment, the tribulation lightning suddenly fell from the sky. Boom! In an instant, a terrifying force swept down. Below, Celestial Demon King's pupils constricted. He suddenly roared, spread his arms, and returned to his original form. Celestial Demon King was like a giant bear. His arms were 10,000 feet long. Once he returned to his original form, the surrounding mountains seemed extremely small. A trace of hostility flashed in the Heavenly Demon King's eyes. He suddenly roared angrily and punched. Rumble. His punch shook heaven and earth as if it wanted to crush the sky. It was extremely frightening. Rumble. With a loud explosion, the tribulation lightning directly shattered Celestial Demon King's body. Gone. That mountain-like body was like a piece of tofu in front of the tribulation lightning. It shattered with one touch. Boom. Celestial Demon King's body shattered, leaving only his soul. That soul was extremely weak and almost transparent. All the Phase Sky Race experts were dumbfounded. Yi Xian was also a little shocked. Damn it, this Dedeabi is really amazing. In the air, Celestial Demon King was a little confused. Gone. I'm gone just like that? What the hell? At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly said, Celestial Demon King, rest in peace. Celestial Demon King looked at Yi Xian with a sharp gaze. You deliberately set a trap for me to offend Dedeabi. Yi Xian nodded. Yes. But you said it yourself. Dedeabi only bullies the weak and fears the strong. In front of a true expert, he doesn't even dare to fart. You said that, right? Celestial Demon King stared at Yi Xian. Yi Xian smiled and said, I'll be struck by lightning if I act cool. Huh, Celestial Demon King was so angry that he disappeared on the spot. In the battlefield, all the Celestial Demon Race experts were dumbfounded. Gone. The powerful Celestial Demon King was gone just like that? At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly cupped his fists at the tribulation lightning. He smiled and said, Brother Bai, thank you. Dedeabi, all the Celestial Demon Race experts looked at Yi Xian in shock. Was this guy on Dadeabi's side? At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly frowned. What? You want to exterminate the entire celestial demon race? This isn't too good, right? All the celestial demon race experts. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly said seriously, Brother Bai, this isn't right. Although Celestial Demon King was disrespectful to you, his wife and children shouldn't be implicated. I think it's enough for you to kill him. You want to exterminate his entire race? You're going a little too far. Dadeabi, all the Celestial Demon race experts were really panicking now. They had just witnessed how terrifying Dadeabi was. If Dadeabi really wanted to exterminate the entire Celestial Demon race, some of the monstrous Sky Tribe experts were already starting to feel fear. At this time, Yi Xian said, Brother Bai, this clan must not be destroyed, they are inhumane. When he spoke up to this point, he paused for a moment and said, How about this? Ask the Demon Sky clan to compensate you with thousands of universe veins, and we'll let bygones be bygones. What do you think? Dadeabi, Yi Xian suddenly turned to look at the Face Sky clan experts below. My brother Bai has agreed. Give me 1,000 or 10,000 universe veins, and I'll let this matter go. In a small room in the Milky Way galaxy, a voice suddenly bellowed, Damn it, how dare you be so fancy. F***ck me. At this moment, a sword suddenly appeared in the room. The voice stopped abruptly. After a while, the voice said calmly, Young Master Ye's wisdom is unparalleled. I admire you very much. P.S. If I explode today, I won't let you leave the toilet. He squatted until his legs were numb. 7017K. You're tuning into the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.